All right. Calling to order Historic Landmarks Commission, January 31st, 2024. All right, start with roll call.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call. Chair Grumbine.
Present.
Vice Chair House.
Here.
Commissioner Butler.
Here.
Commissioner Dordan.
Here.
Commissioner Drury.
Here.
Commissioner Ensberg.
Here.
Commissioner Lindvik.
Here.
Commissioner McClure.
Here.
Commissioner Uli.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
All right. Great. On to item A, public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject that is within our jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for public discussion. So anyone from the public wishing to talk about something not on this agenda? All right.
All right, thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll move to virtual public comment. If you wish to speak on Zoom at this time, you can raise your hand and we'll call on you. I'm not seeing any hands raised, and we also did not receive any general written correspondence, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. All right, we are on to item B, approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of January 10th and January 17th, 2024.
So moved.
And can we do it with one motion, or do we need to do separate motions for separate?
I would do separate motions just in case there are edits to one or both.
Okay, we'll start with January 10th. And
There was a motion,
by
I'll second
Chair-
it.
Yeah.
Okay, second by Vice Chair House. All right, any edits to January 10th's meeting minutes? Commissioner Ansberg?
Yes, I had a couple. Item 3, number 4.
Okay. All right.
I wanted to suggest that we add to the larger separate hotel.
Oh, yes. Okay, that's a good point. Yep, larger, because it's not actually connected.
It's
and-
down the
yeah,
street
down
or
the street,
something,
yeah.
yeah. And also, number 5, about the, to see the adjacent Montecito elevations,
Okay, yep.
minor.
Makes sense.
And thank you to to our staff for the excellent minute taking.
Thank you. Yes.
That was all.
All right, any other edits?
Unless that's Italian, you should take the A off of adjacent.
Adjacent.
That's the A being crossed out from
Yeah,
Oh, I see. It's a stricken.
strike through.
Oh, yeah, that was. All right, any other edits? All right, we'll go on to, so we have a motion and a second. Let's go to a roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Linvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, we are continuing the same item so now the approval of the minutes for Historic Landmarks Commission, January 17th, 2024. Someone want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, same motion and second by Drury and House. Any edits on this one? All right, we'll just have a roll call vote.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Linvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Abstain.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. We are on to item C, approval of the consent calendar of January 31st, 2024.
Motion to approve calendar.
All right, motion by Uli. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, sorry, second by Butler. And to staff, I guess, for summary.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. Item A was 617 through 623 De La Vina Street, which was postponed indefinitely due to the applicant's absence. Item B was 1715 Laguna Street, which received project design approval and final approval with findings. Item C was 432 Donzai Avenue, which received final approval as submitted.
All right, any discussion or questions? All right, all good, so let's have a roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Linvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. All right, we're on to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals.
I believe the historian has 2 announcements.
Thank you, Commissioners. I just wanted to let you know the article in The Independent about the St. Mary's Retreat Center behind the Mission was inaccurate. There are historic resources on that site. They cannot be demolished based on their application, and they will have to go through CEQA as well. They're not exempt from our process. So the projects, if it ever comes to fruition, will come to you. And full demolition of the site is not going to be just a easy swipe. It will come through our regular processes. So there has been much concern in the community about that article. So I wanted, if you hear some as well, you can reassure them that it will be coming to you, and you have to approve everything. Also, I don't know if you've seen, but on February 10th, the Parks and Rec Department is hosting a workshop to look at alternatives for the Franceschi site. So you might want to be interested. They're trying to get public input on the future of that site. That's
Okay.
it for me. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other announcements, et cetera? Yes, Commissioner Ensberg.
Chair Grumbine, I just had a question, if this is the right place to ask this, about the CEC who came before and spoke to us last time about their work that they're doing on State Street and wanting to see if they could possibly be agendized, or do they need to go through the formal process or whatever. Do we have any information on that? They had asked me to ask that question.
All right.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We will work with them to schedule a short discussion item. Just to remind you that the report was distributed in advance, I think when they came to speak the last time, so you all should have copy. It's fairly short, and we'll agendize. But first, we prioritize the discussion item for today.
Yep, thank you. And we appreciate that. Thank you. All right. And perhaps in 2 weeks from now, might hopefully work out for that. Okay. Other announcements, et cetera? Agenda items? All right. We'll go on to item E, subcommittee reports. So, any signs, designations, State Street Advisory, Plaza de la Guerra, and objective design standards? Does anyone? Okay. All right,
Sorry,
Commissioner
Chair Grumbine, maybe, I'm not sure, is it about the objective development design standards? Robert, I think you are the representative from HLC. I just, this probably should have been under the announcements, but there is a meeting next Friday that we'll be talking about them, and the public is welcome to come. So if anybody has interest in that particular topic, they should show up.
and is that, where
It's
is that?
across the street in the conference room. I don't remember the name of that conference
Okay.
room.
Yep. They should be able to find it on the city website.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you for that. All right, any other subcommittee reports? All right. All right, on to item 1. So this is a discussion item. We're starting 5 minutes early, so that'll be good, because we'll have an extra 5 minutes. This is a discussion on State Street Master Plan process, and I'm going to go through a quick summary here, and then I wanted to go through some notes, and I've, just to sort of keep us structured and on task with this, I've also given us a structure of a mini agenda. I want to run it through with everyone, just so we're seeing how much time we have for the different parts and pieces, and how we can potentially converge on agreed upon ideas. So, and hopefully that process will work us through this through this item well. So this is a facilitated discussion by the Historic Landmarks Commission Chair on topics under the HLC's purview related to the State Street Master Plan. The Commission's comments will be submitted to the State Street Advisory Committee, SSAC, for consideration. All right, so, and for those of you who are watching and don't know the SSAC, our official representative is Commissioner Lendvik, and our substitute is Commissioner Dorden, and it's made up of, I think, 17 or so members of all over different cities, city council members, and others. So, all right, so I wanted to just do a quick little overview of how this hopefully will go in terms of the things to touch on and the time that we'll have for them. So to make sure everyone gets a chance to discuss it. So,
Mr. Chair, just before,
Yes.
would it be helpful to project that up on the screen?
oh yeah, sure, absolutely. Okay. Sorry, I didn't format it very well. I apologize in advance for the ugly agenda. But I gave myself room for notes so I can take notes while we were talking. Okay, so So we have agenda with discussion notes, so an overview of goals and structures, so we got 3 minutes for this one. So the purpose of the discussion is to allow HLC members to discuss with fellow HLC members topics related to the long-term master plan of State Street and the downtown. These comments, and especially those that find a strong consensus, will become recommendations to the SSAC and City Council, which HLC's described charter given responsibilities. So we're going to stick to those things. And then the future State Street Master Plan discussion, I also wanted to touch on. This is not the only time we will have time to talk about this topic. I've also asked staff that after any subsequent SSAC meetings that we try to agendize as soon as possible, maybe the next meeting, our next meeting, agendize a topic for discussion so we can discuss the thoughts that we have on it and also give recommendations to Commissioner Lenvik and Commissioner Jordan for carrying on our ideas to the SSAC. So that way we'll hopefully be able to have feedback that is quick and already planned for as those dates become locked in. So then we're going to do a brief, so that's the overview. We're going to do a brief review of fall 2023 design by MIG. You all received it. It's 100 and some pages long. We're not going to go through the whole thing at all. We're going to just jump around to certain key ones that people want to talk about and that will be useful to comment on, that we feel useful. Any other images that were sent by HLC members as well should be in the folder and should be able to be accessed, so we can talk about those too if you had specific examples that you wanted to bring up for consideration. So then we'll do that, review any HLC, and then review HLC comments, any and all comments that you have had prior to this as well as want addressed. Make sure we kind of get those onto the forefront. And then we're going to go to public comment, and however many public speakers we have, we will go through. And then we'll go on to HLC. Now this will be the part where everyone's going to get 2 minutes to say their key points for what they think are really important. And I'm going to try to jot down as well items that we might be able to come to consensus on, and then we'll discuss those and try to come to consensus on specific items or specific direction that we feel is appropriate to give, and thoughts that we have. And then if we need to, take straw votes or other things. So that's kind of our general structure for it. We have given 45 minutes, and we're actually just about to hit our start time anyways. So I want to try to keep us to this so that we're sort of disciplined about it. And staff as well as in the audience, and we'll be taking notes and our commentary as well for informing the SSAC as in addition. So, all right, so that's kind of the basic structure. Do we have any questions to start off with? And we'll just very briefly before we get started. Okay.
Chair Grumbine, I just hope we can be, not having seen this in advance, I'm hoping we can be flexible. I have prepared some comments that I have, but I didn't know exactly how it was going to be done, so I'm just going to give my 2 minutes.
Wing it. Okay. There will be a little bit of flexibility, but I wanted to at least have our targets there so that people aren't upset if we have to, so that we have enough time and we don't run into an hour and a half long plus thing, which obviously this can become, because obviously this is a very, very important thing. So if you could, and the other thing I'd ask is that you could also forward on all your full comments if you want to give summaries of, especially the key ones, especially for additional discussion, because then we'll have the time to discuss each one together and then see if we can get a consensus and vote. But as well, if you can send all your comments on to Commissioner Lenvik, and I guess you can be sent on to the whole commission, but via staff, and so that also Commissioner Lenvik and Commissioner Jordan make sure that they have them in full. And that goes for everyone else too. If there are more things that you wanted to say, you forgot or whatever, just forward them on to staff and ask that they get distributed, and that way everyone can have them and everyone can know without having a discussion outside of it that your thoughts on it.
And pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair. I believe this agenda was sent out with the memo from Tess Harris last week, so you did all receive a copy of this agenda prior to this hearing.
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine and Ms. Rydell. it's just, this is the first time we've, and I don't want to get into it because that's what we're here for, but we haven't had an opportunity to really have any discussion, so it's hard to kind of get in the groove of how we're doing it. So
Yes.
that's all I'm saying, is that,
For sure, and I would also, and to that point, I think there's, for those, especially in the audience, that haven't been, that don't watch HLC for fun every other week, might not know. So the way this project has been structured, the State Street Advisory Group, or committee, is the official, given by council, official deciding body for giving council advice on this particular master plan project. And I know that my fellow commissioners, and so myself, have been frustrated with certain portions of this process. And we're trying to inform the SSAC as best we can, and City Council as best we can on this, because typically these projects, and in the future, all projects that are, say, a block at a time, or a project at a time, a paseo, or whatever gets developed, will be coming before us as a specific project for full review in the normal standard way. So as I understand all the process right now, this is the master plan process that's in SSAC's hands. Specifically, we can advise the advisors, but that's the way it's structured. And so future projects where they actually are the real project will be coming before us on the particular basis. So that's the kind of general overview for anyone wondering. All right, so other few quick note rule or sort of notes of engagement. While you can use your 2 minutes to say whatever is the most important to you, I would ask that we try to stay to things that are both within our purview and will be the most helpful and most important at this stage, and are the best guidance for the SSAC and for our commissioners representing us there. So, yeah, but you'll have your time to do that. But the better we are at that, and I think the better our comments will be going forward. All right. So with that, why don't we, any questions on that before we move on to part 2 of this? Okay, so let's go through just a brief review of the design, and I want, if we can pull up on screen, I think for the most, everyone's seen this. It's been, as a sort of my own general take on the overview, is the three, they're giving the 3 different sectors, or the 3 different zones, really, as they're sort of the core, and then the arts, just the 3 different sort of districts zones, and they're treating them throughout. So that's this document treats them by districts, and I think some of the helpful ways of looking at them just in 3D is to understand how those interactions between bike lane or pedestrian or multimodal or all those things happen, is via their renderings. So I'm going to ask staff to kind of scroll through very quickly, but then we're going to stop on some renderings. 45 and 57 are going to be our first stops, but I do want to kind of just screen through so that people see, and if there are things that jog your memory as to what you want to discuss and cover, that we can go by that. They also did an analysis based on the happy faces and the sad faces of what different what it would mean to do that same area in different ways, for cars, for bikes, for combinations, for the pedestrians and that. Okay, so in terms of getting this image, I think there'll be stuff to discuss with this in mind, at least that will be helpful for us, our discussion, including how while I don't think it'll be fruitful to get into bikes or no bikes or how things are all going to fit or how that. I think it does make sense to discuss what the character of the street is, what the feel of the space is, and where we're going with it. And so I think this will be useful as imagery to be looking at in terms of outdoor dining and circulation and those things, and how they all work and fit together to create the outdoor room or spaces, or street, lane, promenade, all those things that they might be. Okay, on to 57, if we could. Okay, and then this was as well. This is in the city center near De La Guerra, so those intersections on the other side of De La Guerra Plaza. All right, and then 73 was another one that was, I thought, pertinent to our visual and seeing where plantings are, where events are happening, what structures are, where they might be, and how they inform the space. All right, great, thank you. And then were there any other additional HLC requested imagery?
I did not receive any additional materials or requests for staff to provide any materials.
Okay, great. Okay, so then the last portion was also to bring up any comments brought on by HLC members as key items of potential discussion that were distributed to the general members. And I know Commissioner Dordan, you put forward some of your key concerns, including one of the bigger ones was the discussion of State Street as State Street and what is a street and that portion. So I think that'll be definitely one of the things to be getting into as a discussion item. And any other pieces I'm missing in terms of wanting to be, not in just in particular, because you'll have that, but also as the general topics that people remember that were brought up to everyone that want to be part of this. Okay. All right. All right, so let's go on to, now with that, we've kind of set the framework for things. So we'll go to public comment now in the room. So,
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, I do have one speaker slip for Kevin Boss. If you want to make your way up to the podium, you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Commissioner.
And pardon the interruption, if you could just make sure your mic is on.
all right.
Commissioners, this document from the State Street Advisory Committee, and you're asking you for comments on it. It was from the October meeting. If I was an HLC commissioner, I would want to know why our opinions were not sought at each step of the way in this process. They were here in October, I think, speaking to you, and they were here in June. Tess Harris, city staff, council liaison Sneddon, did come to HLC last year asking for specific recommendations on outdoor dining facilities. Each of them requested HLC input, and each of them promised to present those recommendations to City Council. As you know, at the City Councils, they did not mention a word of the HLC's very specific and unanimous recommendations. If I were an HLC commissioner, I'd want to know why they misled us, why they misled the public and the other council members. If I were an HLC commissioner, I want to know how multiple new ordinances limiting or changing HLC's charter powers were subsequently made by council, passed by council, without HLC input. And finally, if I were an HLC commissioner, I would point out to Tess Harris and city staff that there are 3 words missing from the document you're looking at today. El Pueblo Viejo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I haven't received any other speaker slips, and I'm not seeing any movement, so I'll go ahead and move to virtual public comment. At this time, I do see one hand raised for Merrill Brooks, so I'm going to go ahead and give you permission to speak, and then you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Morel Brooks, and I am president of the Citizens Planning Association. Since its founding in 1960, CPA has advocated for the best standards of design, and we work to protect the heritage of Santa Barbara County. In that same year, 1960, the El Pueblo Viejo was established. Your Historic Landmark Committee was also formed in 1960 to ensure that the El Pueblo Viejo would be protected through the careful city planning and development. A charter amendment in November 1993 was passed by the voters, giving the HLC authority within the landmark districts, such as the El Paseo Viejo area, and among other duties. We value the work of the Historic Landmark Committee. We believe that the city charter gives Historic Landmark Committee control of the design in the El Pueblo Viejo. We understand the reasoning behind Title 31, which was adopted to deal with all temporary changes during COVID and resulted in the creation of the State Street Master Plan area. But this should not supersede the work of the HLC. We would recommend that the HLC have a standing agenda item with regular staff reports from the SSAC meetings, and that the public have access to the minutes and documentation from this process. We'd also like to see fewer canceled SSAC meetings, and perhaps a stronger partnership between the SSAC and HLC would create a situation where there would not be so many canceled meetings. CPA and the public value transparency. We applaud the HLC for having this first formal discussion today. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we do have one other hand raised for Anna Marie Gott, so I'm going to go ahead and give you permission to speak, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I just have to applaud the previous two speakers. They really got to the point, and the point is the HLC is being cut out of the entire discussion, and they, under the charter, do have the authority to make the design decisions for the El Pueblo Viejo area, and the city is not allowing you to make those decisions. I think that the recommendations to have a standing item on the agenda on a weekly basis to discuss what is happening with regards to the proposed changes. And I do believe that you should really reach out to the city council regarding the problems that have occurred, meaning that recommendations are not actually incorporated, that changes to ordinances that specifically affect the HLC's purview have been made without any of the ordinances coming to the HLC for discussion before an ordinance is passed. You know, I think you really need to worry about the future of what the city is going to look like, and really consider, you know, having more outreach to the city council and a discussion of what is happening on a weekly basis at your meetings. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, at this time, that's all for our Zoom participants, but we did receive written correspondence from Kevin Boss and Joanna Kaufman, and that was distributed to the commission prior to the meeting. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. All right, so we are back to the commission now. So for this portion, we're doing HLC commentary on current design as well as any pertinent topics. So each commissioner share your thoughts, 2 minutes each, on what is good or lacking in the design, as well as any additional thoughts, topics you would like to discuss. And I'm going to try to jot down. To keep us on track without that timer, I'll just do our own timer, and we'll let you finish your thought, so it's not, so it's not brutal. But
You have that hammer, too.
yeah, that's right. That's true. Better get that closer.
You can only reach 3 people with it.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Lindvik.
I think it would be good to hear from Dennis Jordan first, if it's convenient, and you would agree to it. He had some very salient points in his memo to you and to the staff, and I think that if he shared that with all of us, it would be valuable.
Are you amenable to going first? Yes. All right. All right. So please go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the sake of brevity, my comments will come as a series of bullet points. I suggest the goal of our discussion should be to begin to generate a set of questions focused on A, basic assumptions informing the master plan, B, the evidence used to justify decisions made in the master plan, and C, proposed strategies for implementation of the master plan. For example, the assumption, State Street is first and foremost a street. A street is not a plaza or a park or a playground. It is a continuous linear urban space. Streets support a variety of activities, but this is variety within a consistent, unified urban identity. I am looking for those features that establish and maintain the identity of State Street as the main street of Santa Barbara and reinforce the distinctive urban, architectural, and landscape character of the city. Second comment, the HLC is charged with ensuring that development is compatible with the EPV. To discharge this responsibility, we need to understand the projects that come before us. And to understand, we often need to ask questions that are not about the aesthetics of design, but the rationale for the design. For example, question, what empirical evidence exists that suggests there is not enough public space downtown now? The Plaza de la Guerra, the Placita, and the Courthouse Lawn, for example, are inadequate for civic demonstrations and public events, and that State Street, therefore, needs to be divided into zones to accommodate new uses, each zone treated differently. I'm not against a variety of activities along State Street. I am against accommodations that undermine the urban identity of State Street as one thing, our main street. Third comment, there's an assumption. The existing design guidelines and the review process should remain unchanged. The HLC should oppose any proposal to exempt projects from review as mandated by municipal ordinances. A master plan that calls for fast-tracking and special deals between developers and the city is a bad master plan. I am uncomfortable with the emerging vocabulary being used on State Street of amenity zones, performance spaces, play elements. All these pieces of urban furniture, all the elements of the streetscape that are solid and fixed in place, I expect will have to come before the HLC for approval. No exemptions, no special deals. There are clearly articulated design guidelines for the EPV, and they need to be respected. I have other comments, but for the sake of brevity, I'll leave it there.
All right, I appreciate that. I paused it, that's why you didn't hear it go off, but you had prepared a lot, so. Okay, who wants to go next? Who wants to follow that one? All right, well, in that case, we're going to start with Commissioner Butler and work our way this way. Oh, sorry, did you say you would go?
No, well, I was going to say that I would love a copy of that. Those
Yeah,
comments.
so if that can be distributed to,
Because they get exactly to the heart of this process has gone awry with, and Mr. Boss suggested the same, and I'd very much like to get this dovetailed. So I'd love a copy of that, please.
okay, yep, thank you. All right, Commissioner Butler.
Ready.
Ready, and hold on. You're done, I'm just kidding. Okay, ready, set, go.
Right. So the question I raise is, what were the design standards and guidelines used in the creation of the elements specific to this presentation and to the document? How do those coordinate and integrate with the design guidelines that we, as the HLC, are responsible for and responsible for using and ensuring? And is there a process to integrate those two? So that was my first concern. Another concern was the methodology that was used in some of the rankings in the process. It was unclear to me as to these various green, yellow, red, et cetera elements. It was like, what was the methodology in the actual process to develop those values and rank them against each other? And then the distinction of the three districts, entertainment, city center, and arts, at first glance feels somewhat arbitrary, and I'm not, I want to raise that as a valid development aspect for the State Street. I'm not really certain that either we need all three or we need any or whatever. So that was a consideration. And then finally, we are responsible for more than just State Street. So as we move away from State Street with the State Street Master Plan, how does that integrate with what's already in our purview outside of that area so that it looks integrated and consistent?
Okay,
Is that
great.
2 minutes?
You did, oh, actually, I didn't start it. Sorry, I'm sure you did. No. Oh, actually, I did. You had 22 seconds left. Yeah,
Okay,
you're good.
well,
Okay.
I can
Sorry,
see
it went
my
to
time.
it went to a different
I
screen.
yield my time.
Yes, okay. So, all right, I think Commissioner Lenvik will take it. I'm just, the yielded time. I know, exactly, that's why I was giving it to you. Okay, so let's see, sorry. All right, so Vice Chair House, you want to go?
I'm just in listening mode today.
Okay, you're going to save your 2 minutes?
Yes.
All right.
I will yield.
Commissioner Uli.
I agree with that comment. I don't have any particular comments. I agree with what's been said so far, and so I'm pretty much in the listening mode as well.
Okay. And I will say, if we do have a lot of listeners, we can use up that extra time in discussion, so it's not, yeah. All right. Commissioner Lenvik.
Yes, as the HLC's representative at the State Street Advisory Committee, I would like to get feedback on certain basic design elements that we feel are important in EPV, and maybe some direction as to how I or we might help the design process achieve those goals. A couple of items that I have listed that I would like to have feedback on are on landscaping. I think the landscaping now is relatively informal and does not speak to Mediterranean design or Santa Barbara. I would like to know, do we want to continue an informal design in landscaping, or do we want to see a more formal design, both in how the plants are located and what they should be? I'd like to be able to tell the rest of of the State Street Advisory Committee, as well as the designers, MIG or whatever, that we think that landscaping is such an integral part of the nature of State Street, of EPV, that we've got to do something about seeing that resolved and revised. I think that another item would be lighting. I think a lot of people think that the current lighting in its
It's okay, we'll give you some more time.
yeah, in its dark presentation is adequate, and I think that to make State Street more alive, more, better, different lighting is necessary. So I'd like feedback on lighting. I'd like feedback on street furniture. In other words, do we feel that cast-in-place concrete planters, cast-in-place concrete benches, or other furniture is appropriate in EPV? Yes or no? Do we think that there should be new structures built in the promenade area? And if they are, should they be adhere strictly to our design standards for Mediterranean architecture, or would we allow something else in there? I'd like to have some feedback on that. Also, I think there's a potential for new structures to obscure the present architecture. Do we feel strong enough about what those new structure uses might be, what their appearance might be, to allow them to obscure the current architecture that I think is very Santa Barbara, and is what a lot of people come to Santa Barbara for? I'd like to get feedback on that. I think that I think that there are questions that also need to be answered, although we have no control over bikes, we have no control over autos, we have no control over where people walk, and I don't think we should get involved in making those elements EPV concern. I know other people on this committee feel we should. An example being, if we're going to have bikes and we're going to have outside dining, this idea of flat and flexible, I think, needs to be really thought out. I don't know how you can have bicycles without having a curb to limit where they wander and go. If you're going to have bicycles, you've got to have more than painted stripes in the concrete. I want feedback on that. Should we take a position on flat and flexible, at least in the whole area? I'll stop now. There are other areas that I think I need feedback on. Dennis and I need feedback on, so that we can present that to the State Street Advisory Committee, and that we can be consistent over the next several years when we see new designs, different designs, expanded designs, whatever, and we can be consistent in what we expect to see.
Okay, thank you. All right, Commissioner Drury.
I've just got a couple things.
Okay.
So I appreciate the amount of work that went in to create these graphics and make them presentable. But I do have a question along with Commissioner Butler about the methodology. I think Commissioner Jordan brought that up as well. And it's rather chilling how the HLC has generally been shunted aside in this whole process. I think from the beginning, it seems to me. I'm part of the De La Guerra Plaza design, and we were not shunted aside. City Councilwoman Sneddon showed up most of the time, and I'm sure that the conduit of information was healthy. But this has been, I think of Commissioner Lemick as a sort of a lone voice crying in the wilderness, because really there's been no support whatsoever, and because we haven't been able to provide that support. This is at least a beginning for that, where you will have information that you probably sorely needed over the past couple of years. So I would like to, it's another subject to go why the HLC has been, I guess it's a thorn in the side of developers, because we actually have a charter, and it's a commission, it's not a committee. And I think that gets in the way of their well, maybe deals or whatever. So I'm just, well, I appreciate the charts and so on. I guess there would be a methodology, maybe something that we should dive into a little bit deeper. But I would like to see this process continue forward. And as far as as bicycles go, we do have a say in terms of what the plaza is going to look like, in terms of if we're going to have curbs, if we're going, because otherwise bicycles just wander off down through crowds of people, as they might do, because youngsters being youngsters. So I guess that's maybe all over the shotgun approach, but that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. All right, Commissioner Hansberg?
I have a pre-2-minute thank you that I'd like to say.
Yes.
Thank you. I just want to express, this has been a very it's a very big undertaking, and it's been a very difficult undertaking. So I want to take the moment to thank the master planning staff and the SSAC and the committee for all of your work. It has not been easy. It's critical that we all work together as we move forward. And I want to thank all the commissioners here, and I want to thank our staff and the SSAC liaisons. I'm especially thankful for this discussion today involving these potential changes to El Pueblo Viejo. That's my pre-2-minute thing. Okay. So to move forward, I always think it's it's always good to take a moment to remember who we are and where we came from. With that, I assembled this little thing, this little collection of images to help us, along with this input that I have today. As Mr. Boss pointed out, it's very important. This master plan is specifically focused on our historic district, El Pueblo Viejo. And moving forward, I would like to ask if we can be sure that this important fact is clearly stated at the beginning of each and every master plan discussion. Just to remind us, this I learned when I was a young architect from a mentor. So over the past few years, the closure of State Street and the input we have all heard from the community, many who are newer to Santa Barbara, I think some of our history needs to be repeated. So, if I may repeat what may not be obvious to everyone. El Pueblo Viejo is Santa Barbara's most famous and well-known downtown district, formed by our main State Street spine, a network of paseos and historic structures characterized by Spanish-style architecture and gardens. Santa Barbara's worldwide fame comes from this traditional downtown layout and the romantic Spanish-style architecture framed by our beaches and mountains. This is precisely why we love it here and why visitors travel from far and wide to spend time here. So important is El Pueblo Viejo that Santa Barbara's city charter included the establishment of the Historic Landmarks Commission to encourage and protect the integrity and character of El Pueblo Viejo. That said, the Historic Landmarks Commission is essential to discussions and decisions for every element in El Pueblo Viejo. And if I could just be a little bit nerdy right now, and for those of you who may not know much about the profession of architecture and design of the built environment, A built environment that rises to the level of greatness is realized through collaborative design into a holistic composition of many complex elements: structural firmness, functional commodity, and aesthetic delight, or the poetry, as we like to call it. The also important but not poetry part includes circulation, lighting, power, communications, plumbing, mechanical, drainage, all the necessary systems and parts that contribute to the complete whole. In summary, however our downtown evolves, I hope it is obvious how important it is that our El Pueblo Viejo be carefully considered and protected, and that we honor and demand that the work be guided and approved by the Historic Landmarks Commission, formed and hardwired into the Santa Barbara City Charter specifically to monitor and protect our cherished cultural area. Finally, there is much more to delve into, and at the appropriate time, I would like to make a motion to continue this most important discussion that we probably could ever have to our next meeting, and ask it to be agendized for every meeting thereafter until the completion of the master plan effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, and, hold on. All right, yeah, if you could send that as well. All right. So Commissioner McClure.
Yeah, just as it's been mentioned already, that the new features would be consistent with the EPV guidelines. That the features that are proposed be relatively demure and passive compared to overly exotic and modern, so as not to kind of compete with the buildings on State Street and the vicinity. I noticed that there's some cool grays in some of the proposed elements, and I think that's a little bit inconsistent with the warm tones of the white plaster and the sun and the tile roofs that are prominent down there. In terms of landscape, dark greens, in my opinion, feel richer and more conservative. And that's kind of the direction that I think we should be going in, though color contrast is a great tool in landscape design. And that's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right. And so I guess goes down to my 2 minutes. I'll time myself too. Okay. All right. So I guess to add to some of the comments, or or play off of some of them as well, in ideas that I feel strongly, and I agree with most of you on most of the comments and most of the discussion that I think will follow. I do want to, the bikes, even though we're trying not to address it, it still keeps wanting to be addressed. I do want to point out in the slide, one of the slides that MIG had prepared, it addresses the multimodal thing and showing a big giant picture of State Street and saying we don't have it right now. So I do want to note that while what we have now is, in my unfavorable estimation, a bike freeway, that's not what, and they've pointed out that's not where they're proposing in terms of multimodal transportation things. Along those lines, while HLC in some ways does not have purview over certain things in transportation, as it affects the overall character, I do think that at least it is, if you're proposing the character of the street to be one way versus the other, I do think there is at least some overlap and influence, which is why I have opinions about it as well. So I do think that what is the character of the street, and this ties to the State Street question that Commissioner Doran brought up, which I think is a fundamental one as well, which is what is the outdoor space, that outdoor urban space that is being created? And I think that a lot of what people are struggling with is the fact that currently, as proposed, that there isn't a strong Santa Barbara feel to that character, and it doesn't actually know what it is. Without that, I think the default of what State Street is, what it used to be, makes a lot of sense as a clear concept, but not that there couldn't be another one. Okay, so those are my thoughts. So I jotted down a bunch of key points, including, and I think especially want to make sure that we cover Commissioner Lenvick's specific asks for us to weigh in, and in general, they're easier, in general, easier to weigh in on than some of the other larger topics of discussion, which we'll want to get to as well.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
can I
Mr.
ask
Jordan.
your indulgence to make 3 more quick comments?
Sure.
The first comment is, page 15 of the slide deck that we were given is
We
about
can go.
guiding principles. And I would suggest that I would like to see a principle added that the goal is to preserve and enhance the distinctive architectural and urban character of State Street, which is based on Spanish colonial revival architecture. Currently, those guiding principles don't have any mention of that.
Okay, let's just pause on that, and this, because I think this will be an easy one. So we'll start with the easy ones first. Part of this is to do straw votes on consensus items, and when we have strong consensus, that becomes an easy, clear thing to for us to ask Commissioner Lenvick to pass on, and also for our sentiments to be passed on to City Council. I'm going to guess that everyone's in favor of adding that as part of the guiding principle. Everyone good with that? Any other changes to it? Everyone's good? Okay, so I think that's a unanimous.
State that principle again.
Yeah.
That
Make
one
sure
of the
it's
guiding
firm
principles
enough.
should be to preserve and enhance the distinctive architectural and urban character of the EPV, which is based on the Spanish colonial revival architecture.
Okay.
Chair
Great.
Grumbine?
Yes.
Would
Commissioner
that be also an appropriate place to add this statement that, just reminding everybody at every time when a meeting is opened, just reminding everyone, we're here talking about El Pueblo Viejo. It kind of ties in with what Commissioner Jordan is saying, that statement be made clear so that everyone, before they begin getting off into the weeds somewhere, they are remembering where they are in Santa Barbara, and that it is El Pueblo Viejo somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, so I guess the request would be from us that acknowledgement of the El Pueblo Viejo become a regular part of SSAC, C's meetings or beginning of the introduction.
Right.
I think it should be at the top of that list.
Yes.
Okay, all right, we'll go with top of the list. We'll go with requesting that becomes a regular and front part of the discussion.
Mr. Chair.
All right?
This is not a prioritized list of principles, so they all have a priority 1 if there's no ranking to them. But if there is a ranking, I would say preservation of EPV would be number 1.
And the little sort of adjustment question that I'd ask on that is, so preservation of the historic resources, but we're also we're that combination of preservation and design, which is implying a change.
Yes, in other words, don't weaken the district or its guidelines or its principles.
And so the enhancement, I think, that
And Mr.
plays into
Chair-
the preservation aspect.
Mr. Chair, fold
Yes.
in Commissioner Jordan's statement as well.
Yes, and I think it hits on it. So preserve, that's the preservation aspect, and enhance, and that's the design component that usually ends up being, especially for buildings or things that are not historic.
The other thing that I alluded to in my comments, this whole notion that, people who aren't architects don't necessarily understand how we work, we have to bring all these elements together. So we have a team of people that, but it ultimately is our responsibility as the architect to be sure that, the pieces come together in a holistic way so that the aesthetic works the way that the community wants it to be. So, even though we recognize we're not the structural engineer, we're not the mechanical engineer, we're not the transportation engineer, we have to be at the table because oftentimes we can offer alternatives that they wouldn't necessarily think of that could work, so we have this collaborative thing that we do, and I think that's really important to educate the community about, because we have been getting excluded about certain decisions when, in fact, we're not trying to make the ultimate call on it. We're
So
trying.
along those, and I'm sorry,
Yeah,
because
it's
of
okay.
time-wise, I want to, because I think that there's an item that we can kind of weigh in on that ties to some of that.
Okay.
So one of the things is knowing that all real projects will come to us as a block or as a street or as a part of it or whatever. All those pieces will come to us. I did want to just float an idea as well that Commissioner Ensberg has raised before, many moons ago, which I think might at least we be able to weigh in on, and it's related to this, that as designs come to us, and maybe this is too soon if you guys aren't feeling comfortable with it, but one of the ways that as a potential, which is an old way actually, is a design competition, and that we're seeing anyone could submit for future public projects like this, and that would we be in favor with them coming to us, HLC, as the judges, but also as the initial design reviewers as part of that process, and just wanted to see what you all felt about that general methodology. It's been talked about before. It hasn't ever been commented or talked about with this group, although some of you have. But anyways, I just want to get a general sense of how you all felt about that as a potential moving forward.
Mr. Chair, I think it would be a leg up for developers to have that in front of them. I mean, starting right off the bat with our strictures and our parameters. Thank you.
So, so back to, design review in general, are people in favor of a design competition for future things? Not that it has to be, but that at least they know HLC is generally in favor or not? Or do you guys feel it's too soon to talk about it?
I think it's too soon to talk about it,
Yeah.
number one. And number two, I don't think it can happen. It didn't happen when they selected MIG. They didn't ask us our opinion on that.
Okay, I know, but that's
But-
why I'm trying to have the discussion
Chair.
now, so maybe in the future. That might have been, okay, so I think that's a good example. We didn't get enough discussion and vote on it. That's fine. I think we're going to need to move down the line here of the ones that we can get
Yeah.
discussion and vote on in terms of consensus.
And Chair Grumbine, thank you. If we could, I think, this whole notion of a design competition, I think we need to talk about it. And we've talked about it, you and I have talked about it. And, but how this would actually, how it could work and how it could be a really great way to involve the community and get a lot of very local kind of ideas. But I think we have to have
Yeah,
another.
to be continued. Okay, so let's try to hit through some practical ones.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
Just one quick comment about that.
if you're using your 2 minutes?
No.
No.
Just one quick comment about that notion. If it is related to public works projects, there are procurement laws in California law that guide that process.
Okay.
So it may
Okay.
not be as easy as saying
Gotcha. Okay.
what you suggest.
Okay,
I have a
great, thank you for,
suggestion on that point.
yeah.
Mr. Chair, just one quick thing.
Okay, we're gonna have to go super fast, because we really are running out of time.
Super
here.
fast. This is a more expanded idea of a courtesy review, basically. We give those courtesy reviews to people, and it really it's a great help to them and a great help to the commission. It saves a lot of time. So this is a broader idea of that, I believe, seems to me anyway.
To some
Very,
degree,
very,
yeah.
very quickly. In the call for this meeting, we were asked to consider the imagery that has been produced by MIG, among others. I will say from my
Actually,
point,
can we pull up, let's see, 57 for that?
and I will say from my part, I do not believe that the imagery aligns well with the EPV guidelines. And I would, therefore, I think that opens the door to a call for imagery that is more aligned with the EPV's character, regardless of where that imagery comes from.
Okay. Okay, thanks, that's a good point. So let's dovetail that into what I think will be able to be a clear stance on it, which was the question of landscape. And there's going to be a couple of things to get clarity on. But the first was Commissioner Lenvick's informal and not Mediterranean comment, what should the landscape design be? And then tying it to sort of the EPV guidelines, and then also we can tie a little more specifically, as you have commented, but I think it also goes to your the passive landscape, and which is more modern, and then also the tones being cooler and less. Really, it sounds like you're saying it's less EPV. They're not EP. It's not EPV appropriate.
The gray
Yeah,
range wasn't
so
relevant.
it's sort of almost an anywhere United States in that sense, from what the current designs are. So it seems like and I would say your Commissioner Lenvick's formal versus informal, I think there can be, I think there can be Mediterranean versions of both in a certain sense. You can have formal allays and it can be really strong. And then you could have informality of like the courthouse or other gardens where there's clumps of things together. It's asymmetrical, it's not as formal, but it's still very Mediterranean. And I think this is, it seems like it would be informal and not Mediterranean. Whereas there might be other things that can be informal but more Mediterranean in the, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would you generally agree with that?
Yes, getting back to what Jordan has said, this is a street, it's foremost a street, not a plaza, not a playground. It's a continuous linear urban space. And I believe that expects a certain kind of formality to it.
I would say that you could have, like, just for example, like, let's say you had a boxwood hedge.
Yeah.
You could have some fun things within it, but it's got some structure to it that's
Yeah, I mean, you may
traditional.
come to a plaza that's being created on State Street, in the De La Guerra area, and that may have a different kind of landscaping, so that you've got some shade and so on and so forth, where people are stopping. But if you have a continuous linear street for 6 blocks with nothing on it, then we've got to,
Okay, so let me try to summarize so we can keep going, because we were literally pretty much out of time now. So
But, Chair Gumbine,
I want to get a couple of key ones on, and I would ask that, okay, real quick, and this is.
I promise. This is great, we're having this discussion. There's a lot to talk about. The next SSAC meeting is, I think, the end of February, or I don't think, has it even been established?
No.
So back to what I was asking is, could we please, I offered to make the motion if everyone felt it was appropriate, to put this on our agenda for discussion again at our next meeting and for every meeting until the master plan is done, so that we can have this discussion and not feel rushed through it, and be able to continue the discussion and give input to our liaisons moving forward, and that I just don't think we're going to cram this into the next 3 minutes. So
Yeah, I
I
agree. I
would
don't
like
think we're
to
going to cram
see-
into the next 3 minutes either.
suggest that.
But at the same time, I also am leery, for sure, of an never-ending thing. Because we could spend from now, this whole next year, we can spend all of our HLC time on it, if we let it. So
But if we have 45 minutes.
Yeah, so
Sorry, I'm just.
No, I
saying,
agree, but-
we
but-
haven't had any time to talk about it. This is the first
that's
time
true.
we've had to talk about it.
That's
So
true.
I don't want to make
so-
it be a 15-minute discussion on something so important
Okay,
as this.
so,
Sorry.
while I agree that we're not done with the discussion now, and it was ambitious to try to get it done in 45 minutes, I do think we've brought out the core issues, but I do think there is more to discuss. I think that it would probably warrant, I think that now that we've gone through all of our core issues and now they're on the table, going through this list, and refining it and deciding on those items that we've talked about would be an appropriate thing, and we probably don't have enough time to force it and get it done today, although we might, but, because I don't think there's as much disagreement as all that. But I definitely disagree with having an agendized item to talk about something that we don't have purview, that that at this stage, we're giving advice to another group, which unfortunately, I don't agree with that the way in which that has been set up and decided, I don't like, and I don't agree with it, but it was decided by powers over us. And so the reality of having a item that we relitigate over and over when we're not actually in the position to give a judgment on it, I think is not the correct use of everyone's time. I think it is important that we get clarity on those items, so I do think it would probably be good to continue this item for one more meeting and agendize it again for 45 minutes, be able to get into the weeds on more of these things and be more specific. But I don't think it's good to keep meeting on an item that is not having any new information, and we don't actually have purview over things except for giving the message to Commissioner
Yes.
Lenvick.
Well, I would agree with that, and we can decide at the end of the next meeting whether we feel like we need to do, another one or not. So I would be happy to make that motion if you want to do that now, or do you want to wait and talk a little bit more?
So because this is, I don't think that, well, we can maybe go 4 more minutes. Let's get one item agreed, agreed to. Yeah, the landscape. Straw vote for landscape. So I think let's wrap up the landscape item, and then I do think it'll be good then to continue it, assuming that that sounds okay with staff, to continue it for 45 minutes. It might end up pushing other items in terms of discussion if we have other things, because I know that you had also asked about the CEC. But to push it with all the items that we have currently discussed, being we don't need to prepare anything for it. We'll just use it, you make a list based on what everyone has said in their time, and then sort of attack that list for the next time. And I know that the SSAC is not meeting until March or so.
Mr. Chair, pardon my interruption. I'm really just want to advise this is a discussion item, so there's no formal motion from
Okay,
the
right.
commission, but you can request it as part of the, just in
Yes,
your
part of-
comments. So we
perfect.
will
Okay.
capture that. But I
That's-
just want to acknowledge that there's no formal motion that would be part of this.
Great, thank you. So along those lines, then, the question would be to you all. How does that sound like a plan?
Sounds like a great plan.
Yes.
Everyone good with that? Okay.
I was in listening mode today, but I won't necessarily be next time.
Okay, perfect. Well, this also gives us our list to really dig into, too. So, and I would also ask that we limit ourselves, and I'll try to do my best to do it on the next time, so that we are addressing all of the things that we've brought up this time first, and then if we have extra time, we can carry on with other things, but it's really going to be addressing this list that we've put out in front of ourselves here. And then I also want to end on a positive note in terms of getting something accomplished. So let's talk about the landscape. So it seems like all the things that I'm hearing, it's that, because while it can be, the landscape needs to respond to State Street, whether it's informal or formal, appropriately in the Mediterranean EPV style for the space that and street that it is. Does that seem to be a fair assessment of, because it kind of captures the palette thing, it captures formality versus informality, and it ties it back to our EPV guidelines and the Mediterranean landscape that this is, and the appropriateness of, because obviously we change trees, different parts of State Street, we change landscape, we have combinations of formal and informal depending on where you are currently, and that goes the same for across the city. So you can find different pockets of different things, and they're done well, but they're all, the main connected thing is they're Mediterranean, and whether they're informal or formal, they're done so in a Mediterranean EPV way.
Mr. Chair, I would tend to agree with that. I would say that the starting point for Mr. Limvik's reference are our guidelines, which I think are pretty clear about what the requirements are within the EPV. I don't think we have to reinvent it or retool it. That's the starting point.
Which is formality and simplicity are preferred.
All right, everyone good with that? Okay, we have a straw vote with consensus. Yes, we got one done, check. Okay, all right, so with that, and we will continue this item, and with all those discussion points, and I'll circle back with staff, and we'll work out a good list that we can distribute as well to everyone for the next discussion meeting. And we would like to agendize it at the next meeting if for some reason we can't, the immediate following one would be as well appropriate. So, everyone good? Good. Okay, all right. Thank you all.
Mr. Chair.
All right, that was, all right, thank you. Okay, so with that, let's move on to item 2. We're only 10 minutes behind, people. That was pretty good for, sorry, and I apologize for even being 10 minutes behind. All right, so this is for continued item, project design approval. This is for 400 West Carrillo Street. This is located in El Pueblo Viejo Landmark District. Proposal to construct a new 63-unit residential building. The project includes at-grade surface parking and garage parking, as well as additional amenity spaces such as common room and courtyard outdoor space. The units are proposed to be 100% rent controlled, moderate income, 80 to 12% AMI, and middle income affordable, 120 to 160 AMI. The project calls for the removal of 8 king palms, 1 jacaranda, and 15 tipu trees on the property. No city street trees or trees within the flood control area outside the western property line will be removed. Project design approval is requested. Project compatibility findings are required. Project was last reviewed on January 18th, 2023. So with that, welcome. If you can introduce yourselves for the record, and then we will go to staff, and then we'll go to the minutes from last time.
Hi, I'm Christine Perone. I'm the architect for the project.
Courtney Miller, CJMLA Landscape Architects.
All right, welcome.
And if needed, Dale Azam from the Housing Authority is also joining us.
All right, great. All right. So staff?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. My name is Megan Arciniega. I'm the project planner. On the project before you, we took this project to City Council. The land use approval required a development agreement, and that review authority rests with the City Council. So this project went first. After your board saw it last, we went to the Planning Commission for their recommendation, and City Council following, and they approved the development agreement. So now we're back for project design approval. I understand the applicant would like to request your reconsideration of story poles, so that would be one discussion item today. And then they're also asking for your comments on compatibility to make the findings. If you have any questions, let me know.
All right, thank you. Okay, welcome. So let's go through, let's go through the motion from last time. So it's continue indefinitely to the Planning Commission with the following comments. 1, the commission appreciates all the work the applicant has done, and it is a wonderful design and is going in the right direction. 2, the mass, bulk, and scale are appropriate. 3, all commissioners are in support of the parking as proposed. 4, the commission is in support of the internal courtyard as the open yard solution. This is a good solution considering the existing site, and it works as a protection for the residents from freeway noise and pollution. 5, most commissioners feel it is appropriate to put up story poles showing the tower element at the Carrillo Street and Castillo Street corner, and should be accompanied with an image of the entire project showing what the story poles are representing for the public's benefit. 6, the parking lot landscape waiver is supportable. 7, most commissioners find the height supportable. 1 commissioner is seeking another potential height solution from Carrillo Street, applying the roof condition as a solution for the height on the freeway side of the building. 8, study adjusting the height of the roof of the 2-story tower element in the Castillo Street elevation so it does not align with the floor of the 3rd story. 9, the commissioners are split on whether the 3 arches in the Castillo Street elevation should be unified arches or varied arches. 10, study screening the balconies of the proposed picket wrought iron design for privacy on Castillo Street elevation. 11, study the 3rd story corner deck proportions. 12, study the chain link fence, wrought iron fence on Carrillo Street. 13, study simplifying the paving on the courtyard, or in the courtyard. 14, study the building elements on either side of the center on the north side of the building portion. The element with the 4 square arches and the element with the 4 round arches. See if they can be moved forward to increase the internal courtyard. The motion was by House, second was by Uli, 700. Lenvik and Manuel were absent. Motion carried. And that was back when we had Manuel. All right, so welcome. And if you would go through the project, what anything you changed, and then how you answered specifically the different comments.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners. It has been a long time, and to give you a concept for this, my project number for this is from 2018. We are here to you to get PDA, not even final, not in the building department, but we're 5 years in to get to this point. So I'm hoping we do well today.
It was a pre-COVID project. I didn't even know about Zoom.
So anyway, I think my inclination is to address items 8 through, I think it's 14. I think there were really good comments from the commission that we addressed, and we can get through those, and then we can discuss again why we're asking for reconsideration of the story poles, if you agree. Okay, good. Because most of the changes had to do with those comments. And as Ms. Arciniega mentioned, we've been both to Planning Commission and City Council for this project, for the development agreement. Part of that development agreement did include the density and height requests, so we do have unanimous approval from those agencies, from those bodies supporting this project. So if I go to, one is 8, study the height of the roof. And where's that Zoom?
That'll find text. Oh, it's,
Oh, sorry.
I think it's hover over the.
Control Z.
Is it just Control Z?
Just Z,
Is it Z?
just Z.
You can touch the screen? Wow.
Fancy.
Wow, okay. And I can open it up, but the prior roof had been up this height, so we dropped it, and that kind of made a better, definitely a better scale of massing. I agreed with that one. The commissioners are split on the 3 arches on the posterior elevation, and I decided that I preferred it this way, and since you guys were split, I kept it. We can continue to study that if that's an issue. That's something we can do through final, things like that, but I think it works. Study the balconies of the proposed picket wrought iron design for more privacy. We had talked about this at the prior hearing. The Housing Authority will be running this project, and they are very good with their residents in making sure that this does not look junky. They would never let that happen. And I know it's actually very interesting from talking to residents at El Carrillo, for example. It's very interesting how much people enjoy these kind of decks and having a relationship to the street. It seems not like something everybody would want, but you'd be surprised at how many people do like it. So we decided, given those 2 conditions, and we like the traditional nature of the pickets, that we have chosen to continue with that. Again, if it's an issue, I still hope we could get PDA, and we'll continue working on that if need be. Study the 3rd-story corner deck proportions. And that was over here, and this was split more half and half. It was a good comment, so we kind of made that more 1/3, 2/3, and still worked with the unit plans. And then I'm going to skip, because then go to you. The last one was study the building elements on either side. And it was talking about these 2 building pieces, and see about pushing them forward to get a little bit more room in the courtyard. It was actually a difficult move. So many of these pieces, kind of how they go together, it was not easy. And what mattered, especially to me as a designer, to get a foot or 2 more in the courtyard. I didn't want to end up with a 1-foot step here. I wanted to I don't like those kind of fake 1-foot, 2-step articulation massing moves. So I thought it was still better served to make this building feel correct from the street when we weren't getting that much more in the courtyard. So I hope you all agree with that. And finally, I think we had a couple items here that Courtney can address.
Okay. It's nice to see everyone. It's been a year
Nice to
on
be
this
seen.
one. Couldn't believe that when I looked back at the plans.
Yeah.
Okay, so the main comment that we addressed was, of course, the fencing, and we did some work with the county flood control and our client to address that comment and make sure that we had, the right safety measures alongside the channel or the creek, I should say, and that, it was appropriate from an aesthetic standpoint as well. So what we have now is a wrought iron fence that goes all the way around and along the top of bank here, or the top of the channel, and then all the way back. And I do have a materials board I can share, which didn't make it onto the plan.
City TV?
And we're looking at a very straightforward approach to that fence. So it's similar to what Christine has for the balconies, just a very straightforward straight top and vertical pickets. And, the chain link is not a good idea anyway alongside the creek because it can easily be cut and accessed that way. So we have that proposed for our fence detail. And then there's now an access gate, a person gate, which you may have seen on the plans that accesses Carrillo Street.
I'm sorry, can you hover over where your green screen detail is in the plan?
Yes, and so I'll speak to the other materials there too. So the other materials we have are concrete paver and a porcelain paver as well. Both of those are intended to be pretty monochromatic, and they're throughout the internal courtyard here. For the paver, we chose a random running bond, which we think is a little bit less modern, which will pair well with the building architecture. And then we do have these little green screen panels proposed. And those, maybe I can zoom in. We just have a couple. So they're intended to create these kind of little seating nooks is what I call them. So we have one here, and one here. I think there's just 3. And those will be integrated into a planter. So it's just, a product that you can specify from a catalog. And we'd like to plant those with, what is the name of the vine?
Sweet peas.
Morning glory.
Oh gosh, no, it's in our palette here. The Hardenbergia. So that's a native vine that does well in the shade and has a beautiful purple flower, and they're really easy to maintain. So we think that'll be successful. And I believe that covers the changes. I know there was some discussion around the street trees along Carrillo, but we don't really have the ability to change that species. That's the designated species for the block. So those will remain as king palms as proposed previously. And we did look at simplifying the paving. We preferred to have some difference in this center space because it's more of the communal space, whereas the areas along the side are kind of more intimate. So that was the thinking there, just to help this feel like, the dining room table, something like that. So I think that covers everything for me. And I don't know if Christine had anything else to share. So.
Okay, so thank you. So finally, the story polls. And I understand and really appreciate that the commission did think in terms of reducing the amount. I do, just as a point of comparison, the project just a block up from us with, I think it's 4-story poles, is $12,000. So it's not insignificant to do this. We also feel installing them, given the existing Tipuanas, they'll be in those existing Tipuanas and not very visible from the street. And then we also felt that as a part of, the public's benefit or the public's awareness of this project, given that this is from 2018, we've had 2 major neighborhood outreach meetings. We had one in 2019 and another in 2020. And that was just through the Housing Authority. Sent out 400 notices. We had over 50 people attend. And it's interesting that when that started, and that was with a larger project that the council wanted us to consider, 115 units with fewer parking spaces. We listened to our neighbors, reduced the size of the project, and increased the number of parking spaces. And then going on to a noticed hearing at Planning Commission and a noticed hearing at City Council and noticed hearings here, we are not seeing any neighbors. Very few comments. We had one at Planning Commission, for example. This project has had a lot of press coverage. I looked this morning and counted 5 articles in Newshawk, 3 articles in The Independent, and I'm sure Sightline, I know, picked it up several times. So as far as the community's awareness of this project, I think we've done a lot. We've done 3D views, we've done animation, we've done a lot of awareness for what this project will look like. We've gotten support for the density and the height from City Council and Planning Commission. So given all of this, and this is a truly capital A affordable housing project, we would ask you if you could consider a waiver on this one. And I know you gave us clear direction, and thank you for your forbearance on asking again, but we thought we should try.
Okay. So does that complete your presentation?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, let's go to the public comment. Anyone in the room wanting to comment on this? All right,
Great, thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, we don't have any virtual participants, and we also did not receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
all right. Does staff need that handout? Sorry, because it was, yeah, not part. Okay, great. Okay, to the commission for questions.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Drury.
So did I read that the perimeter wrought iron fence is 6 feet high? Is that what I read? Hello?
Caught me off guard there. I actually don't know if I have that. Oh, yes, 6 feet.
And is it solid stock, I assume?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Probably tube steel.
Oh, actually, no, this product is not.
It's tube steel.
Mhm. We're trying to go with, something that's budget friendly.
And this is not a question, it's a comment. I'd consider waiving the story poles.
Question mark.
And just for, we would, for the railings on the building, we would be using solid stock. That's important to us.
Okay, thank you. All right, Commissioner Ensberg, do you have?
Yes. Thank you. It's good to see you again, and appreciate the progress. I just had two questions. What's the color of the plaster? Is that going to be a bright white, or is it going to be something else?
It'll be a very traditional white, Santa Barbara white. So I don't think, it's not going to be a pure white. I will have a slight kind of creaminess under.
Kind of like
under-
the images you showed?
Yeah,
Okay.
just a very traditional color.
Okay, and then the lawn, this, I probably should let.
Oh, go ahead.
The,
Well, it's not
talk
actually
about the-
landscape, so you can ask.
Yeah, the synthetic lawn. Could you talk about that,
It's plastic,
please?
so you can ask as an architect. All right, so.
What's the question?
Yeah.
Why synthetic lawn, and, yeah, talk about why you're doing that.
Thank you for asking. I neglected to mention that when I did my presentation. So this, we've had a lot of debates about this. And, we really have to go with something that's durable, that is easy to maintain. And we wanted a softer look for that particular part of the courtyard. We didn't want to do more hardscape. We wanted it to be a more, active is not the right word, but a space for play. And this is the material that we landed on. Honestly, it's not something we typically use, but I think because it's internal of the building and it's a space that's just for the community members and it's mostly shaded and will be well maintained, I think it will be more successful than what the alternatives were.
So thank you, is that just this area in the middle there that can you point to
It
it right
is,
there?
yeah,
Just-
thank you,
just that?
Christine. Mhm.
And the other areas are landscape? That's
Correct.
the only lawn that you have?
Correct.
And
We
it's
have
plastic.
in-grade and raised planters otherwise with real plants. And that space is intended to be a little bit more active. So we've indicated a cornhole game on the plans, but something like that, place for people to play.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair House.
On the rendered elevations, it didn't seem, the roof didn't seem to depict two-piece tile, that looked more like comp shingles.
I can assure you that will be true two-piece clay tile.
Thank you.
Good catch. All right, other
Mr. Chair?
questions? Commissioner Butler.
Thank you. It's been a long process. My only comment would be I would support the project for PDA, and I would encourage waiving the story pole requirements.
Question.
Oh, that's a comment, that's right. Right?
There we go, there it is.
Transition.
All right, other questions? Okay, I'll throw out a question. regarding the green screen planter, so the planter box itself is going to be a different thing, or is it going to be that wood, proposed wood thing?
It's proposed to be the wood.
Okay.
I think the alternative is, a steel or something synthetic, which,
Okay. And so I guess the question would be, do you have any other choice of options for that?
for that element.
That doesn't have pure horizontal, modern box look.
Yes, absolutely. Let's
Okay.
see. Yes, that's the wood. Yeah, so the alternative would be a steel or, a synthetic solid material. Wouldn't have that horizontal.
Okay, but there are other
Yes,
options.
there's other choices.
Okay. And then, okay, I think that was it for my questions.
Pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair. Before we leave questions, I just wanted to remind the commission that if you did not attend the last review of this and you didn't watch the recording, you won't be able to make comments or vote on the motion. So Commissioners Lenvick and McClure, if you did not watch the recording, you won't be able to make comments. So this might be your last question or opportunity to make some strategic questions.
Yes. Right?
Comments in the public.
Yeah.
I guess my question would be, is synthetic turf within the EPV guidelines?
Question mark.
Mr. Chair, I would ask if it's a courtyard that's not open to the public, is it in our purview?
I believe the answer to that is I'm pretty sure is yes. If it's exterior space, it's yes.
Okay.
Even, like rooftop things or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
If you got PDA today, what additional community outreach would you anticipate going forward? What other opportunities would the community have to see the building?
I think it would be with with this commission, so it would definitely be final. And we, as an office, like to come in progress. I know there's been some reluctance to do that, but ideally, we would come back at least once for in progress and once for final.
Thank you.
Reluctance on whose part? This commission or?
I believe there's been some reluctance from our experience with when we've asked to do in progress these days.
No, we usually encourage that,
Yeah.
my experience.
All right, well, we'll switch from questions to comments. Is there any other questions before we switch? All right. Okay, so comments. Who wants to start off? Commissioner Dorn?
No.
Oh, sorry.
I'll start.
Okay.
Yes, thanks again, and I would just,
Oh, and actually, sorry, before you start, if you
Yes.
can make sure, if everyone can make sure to comment, especially on anything that we had commented on before and that you have a feeling one way or the other about, including the story polls, the story poll discussion, as well as any additional new things that we're seeing. So, all right. go for it.
yes, I very much support the project, and I appreciate, your explanation and of the changes you made and the considerations that you took. And just so that you know, when we talked about the option for you to move the building forward if you wanted to capture more space, that was just to give you that option, and it wasn't a mandate at all. It was just trying to maybe help you out if it would. So I appreciate all the comments again and the direction you went. I really don't have anything more to say about that, but I like prefer the brighter whites as opposed to these kind of dingy whites. Sorry.
They have
So
to
I
earn
do,
their
that's,
dinginess.
I just think it looks so beautiful. It's just so fresh, and it looks so clean, and it looks so beautiful with the landscape. So I would like to see that if possible. I do not support the synthetic lawn. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good thing for us to be moving forward with as we're trying to deal with all the plastic in our world and everything else. And I think that you could make it be an opportunity. You could use maybe some other material. If it's going to be a cornhole thing, it could be maybe DG, or maybe you could put lawn, and maybe maybe this is an opportunity for the people who live there to, take care of it. So I just I can't support the synthetic lawn. And then as far as the story poles, I think, you've just done a tremendous job. This is all the things you said. I don't want it to be construed that this is setting precedents that down the road that we don't want story poles. I think they're really important. But given what you have told us and all the outreach, and I certainly have seen tons of stuff on it, I think everybody's very excited to see the project. I would be okay to let go of that here. And I think... Oh, and then one final comment is that, yes, I know it has been since 2018, but these are big projects, and I just have to make a plug for the process. It's a large public project, and, you did go to a lot of different people, PC and city council. You had a lot of things that needed to be checked. So I think you guys did a great job in coming through here very quickly. So I just want to make that point that, these big projects do require a lot of this sort of review. So with that, I'll say thank you.
Okay, and to play off one, and I think it might help just other commissioners as well as myself, to weigh in as well on the height thing, or on the story pole thing. Can you go to the existing shot of the Tipu trees? Or the corner there, and so we can kind of get a sense of what story poles in that location would look like. Do you have any existing site photos in this set now? Or is it? We
could almost
can
pull
go-
this up on Google Earth or something.
Yeah, that's true, actually, from the street view.
Let me see. Do you have,
And then as you're doing that, maybe we'll go to the next commissioner and just,
here, sorry, here we go.
no, but I was thinking like a street photo.
Photograph.
Like, so that we can kind of see, because your comment about the trees and basically putting story poles up into the trees, or, trying to get a good sense with the trees there.
The trees are the story poles.
Yeah.
Can I just put some flags on that? I think you can.
Do you have any street shots?
Let me see, but I think we can also look at, as it mapped here, this tree, these trees right here. But let me see what I got. It's been a while.
Okay.
Maybe one
No,
of
I
someone-
don't, I'm afraid.
Mr.
Kristen, maybe one of
Commissioner,
your
if I could
vendors
make a comment while
Yeah,
she's
let me see.
searching for that. It's currently a parking lot. So any building on this site, even a two-story building, would be a dramatic change in the neighborhood. And I think that they've represented to us that they've done a lot of community outreach. There's been presentations to the city council, to commissions. We will see it again. But I think that story poles are useful to alert people to coming changes. This is covered widely in Newshawk. I'm sure this stage will be equally well reported upon. So I don't see story poles serving the role that they typically serve, and I can support a waiver.
Okay.
And pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
but we did pull up the animation that I believe
Okay.
you guys used at a previous hearing if you want to view it.
Let's see what we got there.
And that doesn't show existing, so.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Okay.
it shows
Never mind.
proposed. That's why I was
Never
trying to
mind.
find
Yep.
that tree disposition plan that you could kind of, I don't have it mapped together, but you could see where the trees are and where
Yeah, and where
the
the.
corner is.
Yeah, okay. I just thought that's an additional piece. Yep.
It's like a forest.
Yeah, I know,
We all know.
I know
It's
the
like
area pretty
very
well. I
thick,
just wanted
so,
to
yeah.
imagine it with that, and because that was also a good argument for, in my estimation of things, for it not serving the use that story poles are usually meant to be, which is showing the thing popping up. Well, if it's in a tree, it doesn't really help. So, okay, so I just wanted to see if there was that. But, okay, so let's go to who wants to comment
Mr. Chair.
next? Yes, Vice Chair House.
Well, I largely agree with the comments that have been made on the subject of the artificial grass. As probably everybody knows, I hate artificial grass. But, considering it's internal to the site and it could be an outdoor rug or something like that, and it's a very limited use, I would be fine with it on this project. It's, when it's in full public view, I really think it's atrocious. As far as the story poles, I'm just really deeply conflicted about that because it is an ordinance and we are required to require them. But on the other hand, it was a different context back then, and we had a low-slung Santa Barbara to contend with, and wanted to show what bigger buildings would look like. But now we're getting a lot of bigger buildings, and so it seems kind of pointless to require story poles on every building. And I appreciate the comments that have been made about how much press this has gotten, and that the trees are pretty large already. So I suppose I would support a waiver on the story poles.
Okay.
But I think city council needs to address this issue. They need to revisit the ordinance and see if it needs to be rewritten, because we go through this every time.
Mr. Chair, just one point of clarification. Your board does have the authority to waive story poles.
Yeah, so it's required unless we waive it. So
Correct.
the argument has to be made well enough that it isn't
Well,
going
I
to
seem to remember there are a bunch of grounds for exceptions, but it's always been a challenge to find one that actually makes sense, like a ridge line or something like that, and it just never seems to fit.
Yeah, there have been, I think we can find enough examples, but it
I'd have to
isn't-
look at it again,
Yeah,
but-
but there's also plenty of times that we have not been convinced enough to do it, or for other reasons. Okay.
And Mr. Chair, just to sort of cap that, the proactive outreach to the neighborhoods, I think, over the last 3-4 years, I think that really kind of puts the kibosh on story poles. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Uli?
I never care for story poles. I think they're a waste, so you've got my support for a waiver. Personally, I think they're useless. Unless you really know what you're seeing, there's no context to them. I support a waiver. Nice work on addressing the comments. I appreciate that. I think it's a very supportable project, and I support PDA.
All right. Other comments?
I already made my comment.
Okay. Commissioner Jordan, thank you. Pretty much everyone else. Commissioner Lenvik, are you commenting, or are you?
I'm not commenting. I think
that's
it's a
right.
great project. I have no problem. I want to ask staff why I should be disqualified, though.
Did you see the tape of the last meeting?
Well, the January 18th?
Last year.
No, because the last time we reviewed it was like a year ago, and you were absent, or a year and a half ago.
Well, on January 18th of 2023?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My calendar indicates I was here.
Well, the motions indicated you were absent.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
You got to catch it in the minutes. Either you were there and you didn't catch it in the next minutes, or.
I have no comments in any case. I think it's a great project, and I will abstain.
Okay. Okay, and then I'll throw my comments in here. So of the things that maybe haven't been commented on, so the planter, I think, will need to be appropriately EPV. So I'll just leave it at that, because you can find ones that will be. And it's too modern, and it needs to be more EPV. And then I actually also had a comment on the porcelain paver, which is faux wood, which I don't think is appropriately EPV either. So maybe a different porcelain paver. I think your pattern work is great for the random, what's it called? Running bond. That works. That's traditional enough. That's EPV enough. But I think you need a different one for the wood.
Faux terracotta.
Yes, there we go. Let's see. And then on the synthetic lawn, I would say I would weigh in on the no as well. If there was ever a spot I would be supportive of it, it would be something like this. But I think there might be other ways of being creative that might not be a lawn, but might be another way of getting active space. So, and I think that, yeah, and it's really very much in our guidelines to not use synthetic lawn. So I appreciate the argument. So this would be the least offensive in synthetic lawn space, but it's still, I think it's still against it, and I don't see a too critical of a reason that you have to use it in that spot, or it needs it. And then for the, I think that there are unique arguments in this case as well as the fact that the story poles being on the corner, this site only has the freeway on one side, streets on the other, and then the only spot that really matters the most is how it steps down to the neighborhood, and it already does step down. The biggest part is in the most public right-of-way intersection of a major street. So I can be supportive of that, and especially with the tree argument. It really won't help, and you've also done a very good job of keep getting it out into the community, which is the other reason we look at story poles, not just for design appropriateness and massing and that. We do try to look at it for that, but also for, as a way of alerting the public, which is part of what our description is. So I think you've already alerted the public really well. So I support that. And then the other comments are that for a brighter white for the color of the plaster, but that'll come back, I'm sure, as for final, as part of the spec. And then I think in general, everyone was supportive of the courtyard, or the court, not moving the courtyard spacing per your explanation, and all your design decisions that you made, based on our responses, sometimes taking them or sometimes not, but we're accepting of those. And then with solid pickets for the building, I would say to consider or reconsider what the long-term effect of having a solid fence would be, as opposed to tube steel, because tube steel does tend to get, over 20 years, it'll probably get banged up and you'll probably have to replace it. And so just building for the long term, even though it might be greater expense now, and especially at least on the most public side of things. So where it intersects with the public, walking alongside a tube steel fence just does take it down just a very subtle notch. And it would be nice that at least the public's facing sides, not so much the freeway, but the public sides be real wrought iron. Or a solid wall or some other appropriate material. If it's going to be iron, yeah, real wrought iron. All right, so that would be my other things. And then, let's see, so we got story poles, synthetic lawn. Do we want to do, not everyone commented on the synthetic lawn. Right now, I think I only have 2 no's and 1 yes. So is there those that can vote? Does anyone feel strongly about it?
I would say we follow the guidelines, and if the guidelines prohibit it, then it should be a no.
Agreed.
All right, everyone, okay. So I think that's a fairly, the majority. So I think those are the comments. It sounds like everyone, I don't hear anything that isn't for project design approval, because these are all things that would definitely come back on for final.
One other question, Chair. I forgot to ask about the window color. What are the windows?
I don't remember.
It's been too long.
No, for this one, I wanted to use, I think I used a blue on this one, is what I decided. Let me see. Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, good. Well, as long as it's a color.
Yeah, it was like a,
Not a, dark.
No. No, I wanted this one to have color. I was deciding between like a green or this blue, this is a straight out of Sierra Pacific kind of aluminum blue.
Okay, good.
All right.
You should make a point of having the color chips. Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We will for final. For
the
final, we'll
finals,
put through.
yeah.
And the light fixtures too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank
All
you.
those things. Okay. And any other comments? It's sounding like it's ready for project design approval with those comments.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the project for project design approval, along with those comments that you just outlined and following compatibility findings.
And I will second that. You get to make the findings.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. That the project is consistent with our design guidelines after the fake grass goes away. Compatible with the architectural character of the city and the neighborhood, that it is a appropriately sized, massed, bulk, height, and scaled building with appropriate approvals for such, that it is sensitive to adjacent landmarks and historic resources if they exist, that public views of the ocean and the mountains are not impacted, and there is appropriate open space and landscaping designed into the project.
All right. Got a motion and a second. Oh, and then do we need to make any findings for not requiring story poles? Or is that just a part of the comments and it's fine?
I think just including in your comments is
Okay.
fine. There are no findings.
And that was part captured in the comments, so.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we have a motion and a second under discussion. Any discussion? All right, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Lindvik,
Abstain.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Abstain.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And this action
Thank
is
you.
appealable to City Council within 10 days. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice long road. All right, especially when it's Carnell. All right, on to item 3. So we are early, but as long as the applicant is good, applicant all here and good with doing it, okay?
Quick break.
Oh, yeah, let's do a 2-minute break.
I isn't here yet, but we could go first and then bring their item next second. We have 2 items, basically.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so let's take 5 anyways. Let's take 5. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Give them a running chance. right. Calling back to order, Historic Landmarks Commission. All right, we are on to item 3. Come on up. 920 Summit Road. All right. So this is the Montecito Club's clubhouse only. Is a designated structure of merit designed in 1918 by Bertram Goodhue in the Spanish Colonial Revival style and remodeled in the 1920s by George Washington Smith. Proposal to extend the existing pool deck southerly to accommodate a new spa and cold plunge pool at the existing pool complex of the Montecito Club, including demolition of 1,100 square feet of existing pool deck replaced with 1,200 square feet of new deck, and construction of an 800 square foot subterranean equipment room beneath the pool deck to support the mechanical equipment for the pools. Existing glass windscreens are to be reused to enclose the adjusted shape of the pool deck, and a new pathway will be created to service the equipment shelter. Grading is limited to 10 cubic yards of cut and 0 cubic yards of fill in the area around the pool and to provide a terraced slope. This is there's 2 parts to this, Part A and B, requesting acceptance of a Phase 2 Historic Structure Sites Report prepared by Post Hazeltine. Phase 2 concluded that the proposed project meets the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, therefore project impacts on significant historic resources would be less than significant. And B, this is for design review, no final appealable action will take place at this meeting. Project compatibility findings and minor alteration findings will be required for the project design approval. All right, so welcome. And actually, I just realized why you guys weren't coming up here was because you're going to let Post Hazeltine come up. Sorry.
Pardon my interruption, Mr.
yeah.
Chair. Actually, procedurally, we probably should review the project first and then have them present the report. That way you can determine if you agree with the conclusions of the report that the project meets the Secretary of Interior standards, but then you should vote on the report before you make any comments.
Okay, how about we'll do a twist to that. Let's do Part A, and then we'll pause it. We'll just review the report, but not the design. And then we'll pause it, and then we'll go to the design, review that. If the design passes muster, then we'll go back to the report and approve it. How about that?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right.
That works the way we normally do.
Oh, I got taught other way from others. Okay, all right. So yeah, so why don't we? We'll start. Yeah, so we'll start with item A. We'll go through that. We'll go to public comment on just the historian's report, and then we'll come back and then we'll come back to the project, have it presented, and then have public comment on that. So, all right. So welcome. If you could introduce yourselves for the record, and then give us a just brief summary of your of the report and its conclusions.
Tim Hazeltine, Post Hazeltine Associates. Pam, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sorry. Pamela Post of Post Hazeltine Associates.
In a nutshell, the proposed additions or alterations to the pool terrace area are in a location where there are no historic landscape, hardscape plantings, or design features. The existing pool terrace and all its amenities were constructed in the early 2000s. The proposed project would essentially use the same material and overall design aesthetic of the previously approved pool terraces and amenities. And because the alterations are consistent with the previously approved project from the early 2000s, it was our conclusion that those additional minor alterations are consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. They're not going to introduce massing or design details that would impair the historic resource.
All right. That was good and concise. All right. So now.
Now you get to get up.
Well, and maybe. Let's see, stick around for questions. Let's do public comment questions, and then we'll pause the Part A. All right, so do we have any public commenters on the historian's report in the room? And not seeing any, we'll go to virtual.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, we don't have any virtual participants, and we did not receive any written correspondence on this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the historians? All right, not seeing any. Okay, so now we'll pause this. We'll see you in a little bit. Okay, so then on to Part B, which is the project for. There's no final appealable action. So if you would introduce yourselves for the record and walk us through your project. And you'll have 15 minutes. You don't have to take it all, but yeah, you have it there if you want.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve Welton with SEPS. We're the agent for the owner. Sam Mayfist, landscape architect for the project.
Henry Lenny Design Studio.
So the purpose of this project, you read the description, is the club has had a more family-friendly approach the last few years, and some of the things you've seen before your commission have included that, including some of the pool areas, but there's been a desire for a little bit more adult space, and so that's the main purpose of this project, is provide a little more adult area for the pool. Process-wise, we've submitted a substantial conformity determination with PLR, who's here today, and this is one of those projects that has both ABR and HLC. In 2008, I think we got this project approved. We worked with your commission and ABR and the staff to identify what areas would be within your purview. And the pool actually was a little bit less than this, but because the pool got extended a bit, we ended up moving this into your purview, just so you know. So with that introduction, I'll hand it off to Henry to.
Okay, some things changed, but from a distance, from a public view, it stayed the same. So maybe we should just go right to the photographs.
This is an older set.
And then through the chair and to the applicant, there should be an additional photo sheet that includes those separately uploaded photos. Not that one.
It's a historical.
Is it in the folder? Is it going to, or?
Scroll through the apologies.
She's gone.
Okay, thanks.
We should
Oh, there
go
it is.
to the public. The first photograph taken from, I guess it's called that shopping center.
So it's another sheet, right, Henry?
It's another sheet, previous to this.
Maybe forward or back.
Ah, that one, okay.
She's.
Yeah, she's,
Ah,
yeah.
One of the things that we were interested in is there a public impact to the changes that we're making? If you look at the photographs, that would be the fourth photograph. That one. That was taken at the parking lot, or the temporary parking lot that is there at the shopping center. Can we click on that? Yeah. And I realize you can't see anything. And so if we go on to the next photograph, any photograph, I cheated a little bit here, and this is 1,000 millimeter shot. That that actually shows that everything stays the way it looks now, and that the change in elevation is unperceivable, because we are keeping all of the glass exactly the same, the detailing the same, the installation the same. Okay, maybe we can go some of the other photographs. Maybe that one, Steve, at the very end. Well, you can see it from here. I took that photograph from the lawn, and I realized that I wasn't supposed to be there. The security people came and says, "What are you doing here? Well, you're taking photographs."
Balls flying by.
Yeah, and so I explained that we're just taking some photographs of that for the Landmarks Commission. So the reason I'm showing this is because really from a public point of view, anywhere, it's not going to be visible. And then I tried it from the zoo and can't see anything. So maybe if we go to the other set of photograph. Of the other sheet, yes. Yes. In this case, it shows that everything we're doing at the moment is going to be identical to what was approved before. And the only difference is that we are stepping down to that level. However, the glass is also stepping down, and it will reconcile itself on the higher level with exactly the same detail. And as far as the landscaping, maybe Sam, you can, well, I actually.
This would be helpful for me. If when you're ready, I'll take some of
Okay,
these shots and
well,
describe a little bit of the change.
Yes, the windscreen stays the same. Landscape and pattern and materials are the same as existing. And as far as all the details and of how the basement or the mechanical room is going to work, we have some drawings for that, but they're fairly technical.
So I can take it from here. In terms of that top right photograph, you see some lawn in the foreground of those shades, those lounges. That's all going to be now hardscape patio that will go out to the new spa that will be on that outer edge. We'll show you the plan in a minute, but the green space will be patio. You can also see in the bottom left corner just how much the existing bougainvillea and agave on the sloping downhill side beyond the glass kind of comes up and really does hide this from any structural kind of viewing of architecture. You see the top of the glass, you know there's a patio up in there, but really the piling up of the existing plant material is so substantial. All that material is going to be either replanted or in that same vein exactly the way it is. So those two photographs give you some sense of it. The bottom right photograph is all that plant material spilling down the hill to that existing cart path. So we're really just pushing the glass out about 4 feet in the middle arch area, and then it's going to go straight. And if you could go to maybe that landscape plan, Steve, I'll show you the plan view of how the water area is taking up where I showed you that photograph. The green space is now the lawn in front of those chairs. So there's going to be a spa that continues along kind of east to west. There's one long one that's got 3 little arches in it, and then a cold plunge off to the west side. But you see there's a dashed line in the spa area. That's the existing hardscape, and the existing screen is the furthest to the south or furthest to the bottom of the sheet. That is being moved out in the center about 4 feet. On the corners, it'll come out a little further, and it squares up, as you can see, and all that patio space will match all the existing paving, all the existing tile work. It's very nice and ornate hardscape. It's beautiful patio. That's all to stay. The stairs are going to be moving from the center to drop you into that space that exists now to the outside. So you'll approach from the east or west end of this little spa area, if you will, to create more space for chairs, more space for lounge. But getting to this area underneath for the mechanical, as this shows, will come from the east parking lot. You'll come down a pathway. It'll be sloping quite steeply, and you'll have a roof that cuts over the top of this tunnel, if you will, that will be landscaped. So all of the plant material that's shown there is bougainvillea and agave and rosemary that exists now. It'll be planted back around all this new area of protrusion, if you will. And so you really won't be able to tell it's changed at all. The only thing you'll see is a little bit glass closer to the eye. The tunnel, if you will, won't be seen. Any door or any kind of entrance is not going to be perceived by anybody in the public. We did a little quick sketch to kind of show you an imagined view of that. We can look at that if we want, but this is the intent of, can we show any other pictures?
Just that sketch.
Oh, the
Yeah.
sketch sheet.
The
You
sketch,
should have
this-
access to it there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, there we go.
So this is a very loose sketch, but it shows you again that eastern parking lot has 2 parking stalls to the left of the main entrance, which centers on the pool and centers on the lap pool. The glass is, of course, pushed out that 6 or 8 feet.
It's still very hidden by the agave that are planted all around it, and the bougainvillea. La Jolla is probably 3 to 4 feet tall and spread completely. As you look, I've given you a little impression of the small little path that goes to the south and then turns and bends and goes underneath a roofed garden roof area that goes into the mechanical room. So there's no architecture that's really going to be presented to this public view or the private view of the members. So that's an attempt to give you the overview. Again, you won't really tell that there's anything different other than it's slightly moved forward. And once it's all planted, I don't think anyone will even notice a difference.
All right.
All materials match and all glass is to be reused. So that's essentially the presentation.
There's a bunch of technical drawings if you want to see what they're all from.
Maybe just
Wanna
zoom
see
out
some
and flip
sections?
through just so that we've seen it and shown it to the public too.
That's existing, yeah. And this is the new, the spa is at the far bottom right.
Just a civil plan here.
No one cares about those.
I always tell the civil engineer that.
That shows you the backfill that's on the south side towards the freeway and towards the ocean, and just how deep that kind of service maintenance bunker is underneath everything, all the soil and the existing finished grade of the pool deck.
More interesting sections.
There's some interesting drainage work that goes underneath all that. That's going to be tying into the golf course drainage system. That's all been figured out, but that's infrastructure and buried. You'll never see any of that.
Just to detail the entry to the equipment room, a little more detail of the spas itself.
Lots of concrete, but you won't see any of it.
And these are mostly details, mostly for the pools. Handrail detail. That's it.
All right, thank you. All right, so if that completes your presentation, we'll see if there's any public comment in the room.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, I don't have any speaker slips. If you wish to speak in person, you can fill out a speaker slip by the back door. Not seeing any movement. We also do not have any virtual participants, and we didn't receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. All right, to the commission for questions with the project?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Vice Chair House.
So I didn't see a drawing that showed where the existing glass was. You had that bow front, and so is the glass kind of faceted wrapping around that?
On that bow, yes.
Okay. And so is there a reason you didn't replicate a bowed front in this new design?
I think, design-wise, I think the intent was to get the spa right to the actual edge, as opposed to the bow, but I can't speak to that exactly
And then I'm just
why.
curious, it looks like it would be difficult for somebody to get access to clean the glass on the inside, and if the pool water is splashing on it, it seems like that needs to be done, and
I
so.
think there's a coping edge, but that's, you'll do a tightrope walk on the coping edge by the glass. It can be done.
Okay.
All right, other questions? Commissioner Ansberg?
Yes, Chair Grumbine. Thank you for the presentation, and I just wanted to look quickly, you had that aerial of the existing, and, yeah, could you go to that for just a sec? It was a colored.
It's a blow-up of
No,
the
there was
whole-
it was a colored
one on the
photograph.
historical, report? or-
No,
There's a better one,
no,
a
it's
bigger
here. Go down further.
There it is.
Yeah,
That one?
there it is. Can you blow that up a little bit so we can see how it is right now? Okay. And then there we see the bougainvillea and the other, what is it, agaves or something that are
Agave
along there?
attenuator, and they're in big groups, big clumps.
Okay, and so then to your little sketch,
Yep. The sketch is
There,
kind
okay.
of taken from that far right
Right.
side of that photograph.
Yeah, I get it. But, so this looks like more, would the landscaping be coming up higher than what you're showing in the sketch to sort of screen the glass more, or no?
I think it would match pretty much that photograph I discussed when I showed you how the bougainvillea was up higher on the glass.
Yeah, it seemed
I
like,
just drew it right about the finished level of the deck to hide any of the, I guess, the little
Structure.
retaining wall that might be there. So it'll pile up as high as they let it.
yeah, I just was
Keep it trimmed.
imagining this with the photograph that you had of the existing right now that Henry took from the lawn. And that seemed to be up higher and really hiding the glass completely, whereas, so is this just that you?
I want to be realistic and that the south end of the glass is going to be a little taller because the grade does come up towards the entry, but it will continue to get taller and taller and be about a third of the way up or half the way up the glass. They don't want it to come any higher than that because that's where the view is of someone sitting there on a table or a chair.
Right. And then I guess to Commissioner House's question of cleaning, even though we have this massing coming up, then how do we get in there into the bougainvillea to clean the glass?
It's a good question. I think the photograph he took, somehow they get in.
Yeah, through the chair, we should have brought our maybe operations person, but they certainly are doing it now. So
Okay.
it's
Okay, no,
And it's
thank you.
bougainvillea, so it isn't fun. Yeah,
It's kept very clean.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Commissioner
Yes, I
Drury.
recall in years past, there was a pergola, sort of along that, is it east of the pool, the big, that round pool?
Want to go to the
Was?
photo, maybe?
West
Or
of
the
the pool,
here.
on the main clubhouse.
Oh, okay, okay.
Main clubhouse. There really isn't. Oh, yeah.
Oh, there it is, there it
No,
is.
it doesn't come towards the pool. See it? It's right there.
Yeah, okay, okay. I was just familiarizing myself. That's,
It extends over to that bathroom building.
good, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, so, okay, so maybe we'll go through what we want to do with this, and then we can go back to, if everything's gonna, and I haven't heard anything yet, but let's jump into comments first. Let's see what everyone has to say. Doesn't seem like this is that controversial. So, I haven't heard any questions leading that way. So who wants to start off? Commissioner Hansberg? You?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, okay. Commissioner Drury? All
Yeah,
right.
I think it's an eminently supportable design. I think it's pretty ritzy, and it's kind of maybe about time. I mean, you guys were on the other side of the main building with the shed for the golf carts, and that turned out to be a good-looking project, and the tennis courts, but this kind of sort of finishes it out. This looks really good to me. Thank you.
Any other comments? Want to jump in?
Mr. Chair?
Everyone supportable? Yep. Vice Chair House?
I think I would prefer to see a bowed front, just from the perspective that this is south-facing, and so I'm wondering if sun's going to reflect off of it, and if the glass is faceted, it won't be the whole length of it that we'll have an opportunity to reflect off of. So I'd have a concern about that.
Okay, can you go to the floor plan? The counter argument, I agree with the potential concern, the counter for the glare, but the counter argument is everything is organized in a pure straight front, so it feels weird that you would then bow the glass out, because then, you're sort of going against the plan of the spa. Now, that being said, hopefully it won't be blinding, but I guess a question would be, has there been any complaints with, obviously, the current faceted would only blind you for a little bit, but has there been complaints about that, or?
Mr. Chair. Through the chair. Yeah, the glass issue was actually came up when we first did this project, and the applicants used a really high quality glass, which they also use at the Coral Casino, which is super transparent, and so the glare issue has not come up. No.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense, because I was also going to say there has been at Embar times where they've been concerned about that and that issue with reflectivity, and they required basically a special, more expensive, non-reflective glass for things. So But, okay, but, and if that's what's being reused, then, I don't know. Okay. Okay, so yeah, I mean, because design-wise, I would say it wants to be straight across, assuming that there's not going to be this offensive glare.
Well, yeah. I mean, I have a hard time believing that just because the glass is super clear, it's less reflective, but I raised the concern.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
That photograph that I took from the parking lot in the shopping center, that was taken, I remember, at 10 o'clock in the morning. And so I chose that direction because of any concerns that it would be blinding in any way. And so the impact is going to happen most likely between sunrise and 11 o'clock. And then the sun begins to move west.
And depends on time of year when the sun
That's true.
is lower, so.
And that picture was taken in December, isn't it? So
Pretty
that's
low.
probably the worst time of the year when it comes to
Well,
reflections.
if there are a lot of accidents on the freeway, you'll hear
I'll
about
tell
it.
you, actually, it'll be me. Because I commute.
Roundabout, which is dangerous enough.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Okay, yeah, Commissioner Willie.
I think it's a supportable project, primarily because most of the general public will never see it.
Right.
The glare on the glass, I think, can be easily solved just by canting the glass a quarter of an inch. You know, it was done at Henry's Beach, and, you know, there are ways to cant the glass so that the glare shines to the ground.
So this could be at Henry's Club?
I like the treatment. I don't think there's an impact to the historic resource at all. I'm supportable.
Okay. All right, is everyone generally speaking supportable? All right, supported? Yeah. Supporting, okay. So, so I guess we should now go back to the historic report and take a vote on that first, so that we are.
Through the chair, yes. We need a decision on the Phase 2 Historic Structures Report, if that's being accepted. And as it was noted in the project description and footer, so this is here just for comments, but I'd like you to consider whether this can return to the consent calendar for project design approval and final approval.
Gotcha, okay.
I
Thank you
think
for
I
that.
can handle it.
All right, you ready? Okay, so we'll go back to the part A. And I think we can, unless anyone has any additional comments, is everyone supportive of accepting it? Okay,
I'd make a motion to accept the Phase 2 Historic Structures Report for this project.
Second.
All right, I heard Commissioner Butler beat you, Commissioner Ensberg, sorry. Quick on the draw. All right, so motion and a second under discussion. Any other discussion? All right, not hearing any. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. All right, and now we'll bring it to to finish off for item B. So I'll just do a summary of what we have said so far, and then we'll see if we can have a motion. We thank the applicant for their careful consideration of all the design elements and of the existing conditions and of what the views from public right-of-way are. We are very support of the design. It's a great design for the space, and we are finding that in general it's meeting the project compatibility findings, and that we could forward it on to consent when the applicant next comes back.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, good job, you're good. You got it. Commissioner Ensberg, Commissioner second. Okay, so any discussion?
The question was, did you want us just to go through the compatibility findings just as a comment, or are you comfortable that we say generally it's compatible with the findings?
Through the chair to Commissioner Uli, if you'd like to just summarize that it's consistent with your findings and it's not a negative impact to the historic resource, I think that that's sufficient.
I'm happy with that statement.
All right. And the seconder as well?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so under discussion, any other discussion? All right. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Insberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you
Thank
very
you all.
much. Thank you. Great work. All right, so we are ahead of schedule, and by too much. So
that happen?
yeah, I know. we got on the chart. I know we should have given them a harder time. All right, so we're going to maybe take a 15-minute
Wow. Yeah.
break, and then we'll see if the applicant's here. And I'm going to run for a coffee. Yeah, okay, great. Let's get called to order. All right. Calling to order Historic Landmarks Commission, January 31st. Calling back to order. All right, so we are on now to item 4. This is a continued item for final approval, 1919 State Street. This is located in EPV. It's a proposal to convert 3 buildings at 1913, 1919, and 1921 State Street from office use to hotel use. Proposal for a conversion of 435 square feet of ground floor area to private patios and a 1,300 square foot addition to the existing 4th floor to create livable space and a roof deck. Project includes reduction of 365 square feet at a whole year worth of square feet at the 2nd floor, and a reduction of 430 square feet at the 3rd floor, replacement and relocation of existing stairs, elevator extension, site alterations, and new landscaping. No proposed exterior alterations to 1913 State Street. Proposed reduction of 110 square feet and new entry doors at 1921 State Street. Project requires a waiver by the Historic Landmarks Commission to allow an alternative parking lot landscape design. Final approval is requested. Project plans must demonstrate substantial conformance to the plans that received project design approval on November 8th, 2023, which is when the project was last reviewed. So, welcome. If you can introduce yourselves for the record, and then we'll go to staff and for any comments, and then we'll go to the November 8th and review the minutes, and then go from there.
Okay, thank you, Chair Grumbine. My name is Eric
Oh, you
Bayer.
might need to press that. There we go.
Eric Bayer with AB Design Studio. With me is Will Rivera with AB Design Studio.
All right, great. And to staff, are there any additional
comments
comments
from
on this?
staff on this.
Okay, great. So let's go to the meeting minutes. Okay, so from last time, the motion was for project design approval with the following comments. 1, the wood columns atop the plaster columns at the front trellis element appear spindly and should be more stout. 2, study the feasibility of plaster over the wall on the cell phone screening element and consider adding a small cornice. 3, the project compatibility analysis findings generally have been met as follows. It's all consistent. Yep, we know what they are. If we don't, then we're in the wrong place. All right. 4, the Historic Landmarks Commission finds that the project qualifies for an alternative landscape design waiver to provide relief for the site constraints or to achieve a superior aesthetic. The motion was by Uli, the second was by Dorden. 6-0-0, Drury, Grumbine, and McClure were absent. The motion carried. All right, and I did review the recording for the record. Okay, so questions only for you guys, and then, okay. All right, so with that, if you could go through the changes, any changes that have happened since last time, and then also how you addressed in particular the different comments.
Okay, very good. I'll start with the particular comments. So regarding comment 1 with the wood columns at the trellis, I will move to our exterior elevations sheet facing State Street. The previous design had 6x6 wood columns atop these pilasters, and those have been revised to be 8x8 columns. We appreciate the board's feedback on that, and we have a detail that shows that.
What is that drawing showing? Is that showing the 8x8s now? Or?
Yes.
Oh.
Correct, Will? Or did you revise the detail?
We didn't update the rendering, we did update the detail.
Oh, okay. I
So
apologize.
I apologize for that.
Yeah. And then, actually, I'd forgotten one more part. If you could also, because this is here for final approval, everything from materials, et cetera, lighting, all those details, anything that wasn't reviewed before especially. So walk us through those when you get to it.
Okay, great. The detail is,
On the top left and,
yes, here. So this detail is now showing the 8x8. And that detail is consistent on the east elevation, which we just reviewed, as well as anywhere else we have wood decks and trellises proposed off the building, which I will revisit. So along the east elevation, which we reviewed, and then as well here on the west elevation, and also on the
south overs.
uh-oh.
That's a nice south elevation.
Melted down.
Mm-hmm.
the south elevation. Item 2, study the feasibility of the plaster over the wall on the cell phone screening element. So we've been in discussions with Verizon, everyone involved with that. It's somewhat confusing still. They seem to think that that's a possibility, though we don't have a definitive answer on that. So we're going to try to make that a plaster skim coat over top of the existing screening wall. If we're unable to do so, then if it needs to remain for proper equipment functionality, we're going to paint that and have the plaster wall that's abutting it be flush and do the best we can.
Say that again.
We haven't gotten a definitive answer from Verizon on whether or not that can be plastered. So we're still working through communications with them on that. If it cannot be plastered over, then we're going to paint it to match the color of the plaster wall adjacent to it.
Now again?
Probably fiberglass.
Transparent.
Yeah.
Electronically transparent. Electronic. Yeah.
The other comment was to study adding a small cornice along this screening wall. We did study that, and I think we've got a 3D view here on the title sheet. Our preference is to leave it as previously proposed. We just felt when we added the cornice along this wall here, it brought even more attention to it and more weight to it, and we liked how it was a bit quieter with just keeping the cornice along the wall that's in the foreground as well as these taller elements beside it. So our preference is to keep that cornice free. I'll speak briefly. There's not many changes to the previously approved design with the exception of 2. One is at the ground floor. We've modified slightly the primary entrance. We've pulled the entry doors back to create a little bit of a landing in front of the entry, and we've had to rearrange this a bit to get the egress and code to work from this fire stair to exit directly to the exterior. So that's not visible from public way really, and hasn't been part of what we've been presenting, but that's a minor change. And then one other change related to, as we've worked through our structural coordination at the south elevation here, we had previously proposed these 2 openings to have arches, and that was kind of tied into the arches that were originally proposed along State Street. And since those are no longer part of the project, let me go to that elevation. Since we've lost what was previously proposed as arches along this arcade wall here, we've eliminated the arches at the south elevation. Is also just because of the ceiling height beyond. Those arches weren't really true arches because the top of arch went above the finished floor level with the garage ceiling beyond, so flattening those out makes sense from several
And the garage
standpoints.
ceiling raised 10 inches. We were able to do that.
Yeah, I think that was some informal feedback from the board at one of the prior hearings, was to examine if we could raise this opening here. It was somewhat squatty, and so we've raised that 10 inches. So those are the notable revisions since the board approved the project in November. Beyond that, we've been working through the structural coordination and confirming everything will work as proposed, and then we've been working through the key design details. The materials board has not changed. Lighting and materials is consistent with what the board has seen and approved previously, with the exception of we've added this spec for the 2-piece mission tile for Building B, for the roof at Building B. And then we have our design details on these A5 sheets, which we're happy to review more carefully, most notably the details on this sheet, which relate to the wood posts, which we reviewed, and the trellises and the railings, and some of the sort of the decorative features in the plaster work. And I think with that, I will conclude our presentation and turn it back to the board. Thank you.
All right, we will now go to public comment, and there's no one in the room, so.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. We also don't have any virtual participants, and we didn't receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, to the commission for questions.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
cares about us?
Vice Chair House.
Could I see the cut sheet on the exterior lanterns again? Okay. So maybe on your electrical sheets, it talks about what it's lamped with and all that sort of interesting detail. And then also, I'm curious what kind of lighting you have in that, what do you call it, where you drive through?
Yeah, the court, and the parkway.
Yeah.
Surface mounted fluorescents.
Yeah,
To the
there you go.
ceiling.
Uh-huh.
No, they will be the light fixture B, and there will be space in between the colonnades along the northern wall as you approach the entrance.
You mean you're using more lanterns in that drive-through, or what? Or are there
I think there'll be,
recessed cans in the
there'll
ceiling?
be lanterns at the entrance and decorative lanterns, maybe just one on each side. But predominantly, there'll be recessed cans in the ceilings, and then the ceilings will be coffered between the columns.
Do you have that in your lighting plan somewhere?
A reflective ceiling plan?
We do not. We do not have a RCP of that.
We believe you.
They don't have it?
Huh? No, that they will do it. They
Yeah.
will do it, no question.
Yes, you can see the dotted lines between the columns that will create the coffered ceilings, and there'll be, probably a ceiling-mounted decorative fixture as opposed to a can, but we still need to look into that.
All right, so regarding the lighting spec and, especially for temperature and lighting plan, I think are going to be both important. I'm assuming that, I'm assuming you don't have that we can look at anywhere. Not necessarily reflective ceiling plan,
You had a
but even
fixture
just.
schedule, didn't you?
We're using the same light fixtures that we use on the other projects that we've done. They're 300 Kelvin color temperature, and there'll be LED light fixtures, and they're Steve Handelman
3,000
fixtures.
Kelvin, sorry.
3,000 Kelvin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then all the light, dark sky compliant?
There will be, those are the images from the Steve Handelman catalog, but the top portions of those fixtures will be solid, and there will be a LED facing down on the top portion of the light fixture, and they'll be night sky compliant.
Okay.
Chair, can I ask a question about this since we're on it?
Sure.
So you've got two wall sconces, and then you've got this one pendant.
Right.
Where are the two wall sconces? Why didn't you use the same wall sconce throughout?
Light fixture A is larger, and they are more for the front entrance of the building and the entrance of the driveway. And light fixture B is a smaller light fixture. Those are the light
The
fixtures
big ones?
A.
Yeah.
And then also there's, and then the Bs are in the rooms, above the doors and the patios, will be smaller. And there'll be also two larger sconces, the As, on the two ends of the columns, at the two end columns. You can see those are, yep.
And then the pendants?
The
Is that in
pendant,
the
we're
middle
thinking
there?
about using possibly, as you can see in the entrance of
Yeah.
that,
right
there,
there,
yes,
yeah.
possibly. We're gonna see if we can have one pendant right there as you come in. It'll be totally covered, in a covered space.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
All right. Other questions?
I would like to see where the fire sprinkler double check valve is located.
Yeah, I can take you to that. It's on our landscape plan. So it's in the planter here in front of the patios, and we reviewed that with our plumbing engineer, and based on where the water meter comes in, the water line comes in, locating it in proximity
All
to that.
that's gonna be sticking up above grade there.
Yeah, we're gonna screen that with landscaping, and then we've got the keynote listed on our architectural site plan that has the, bear with me, the paint color specified. So we've got that keynoted to be, what's the, Malaga green?
So, no place else to hide that, huh?
Unfortunately, no. Not without much higher expense.
So let's see the landscape plan that shows that being screened, please.
Got the detail here.
Yeah, it's a detail,
That's for landscape.
yeah. So there is no landscaping shown for that, is there?
It's in a planter, and one of the nice things about when we removed the columns, we actually were able to increase the width of the planters. So there's much more landscaping now than we had before.
But what is the landscaping? That's the question.
It's an area for it.
So it seems like it's not, at
Fully
least as of
vetted
right
here,
now, it's not
yeah.
developed enough to show a screening for it, right?
Right.
Or
We have a
unless we're
planting
missing something.
plan, and the planting plan shows the plants that are gonna go in that area.
Okay, and what are those called out as?
It's this legend here. That's the planting mix 4, which is these here.
All right.
None of it's gonna hide anything,
It's all low.
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions regarding this, the planting plan or anything?
Oh, how wide is it? How wide is the planter area there? Sorry.
I don't know if this has a measuring tool feature, but I believe it's 6 feet
No, it's like 4.5 feet.
from edge of sidewalk to
Yeah.
edge of patio wall.
What's that FP symbol? Oh, ficus.
Pumala. It's a fine, self-clean.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Like, well, I guess it's more of a comment. I'll wait.
You can make it a question.
Right? Rising inflection at the
You
end.
you need a more, the landscape plan is, that's great for preliminary, but you need a working drawing for final. That's kind of not adequate, just showing a list of plant, you have to have quantities and sizes and.
Don't you?
And square
Right?
footages. and- Right.
Okay. All right, other
I have another
questions?
question. Thank you, Chair Grumbine. Are we also looking at the Building C, the little house next door? That's all part of, okay. So maybe could we look, we kind of brushed over that pretty quick. Could we
Is
just-
that property line between, being abandoned or not?
Yeah, there'll be a lot merger for the small building C and the property where building A and B are
So then
located.
you could move the double check valve into that larger landscape area that is in front of the little house.
Potentially,
Yeah.
There's more area.
here's the elevations for building B, which are consistent with what we previously proposed. There hasn't been any notable changes to building B, and then building C is similar, no changes proposed, other than I think the only notable change was previously we had proposed a railing to be above this raised deck that we're adding for accessibility, and we've revised that to be a shingle material to match the existing house rather than a horizontal railing.
And what are the window color, the colors and materials for the windows and?
It's all to match existing, so they're all painted, and I think we've got photos of that.
Okay.
Let's see which one you can actually see it in. See, that's building B. Here you go.
So it's all going to just match, it's going to be that?
Correct.
And the reason that it was going to be that is because it's existing and you don't want to change it, or?
It's a historical structure, so we're keeping all the materials, the windows the same, you know. We're adding a door, and the door is gonna match existing, so we're trying to keep the same integrity.
Okay, any other questions?
Pardon my interruption. Through the chair to the applicant, just make sure you're speaking clearly into the microphone so City TV is capturing you. And then I also wanted to clarify, I believe you just identified that structure there as historic. I don't believe there are any historic structures on the site. It's in El Pueblo Viejo, but I don't believe that structure is on the inventory, or is
It's
it
old.
designated?
Full stop. But,
Right, and one other, so as I'm looking at this, then this is existing, and it's not going to look like that when the renovation is different, because you're changing the windows out and stuff, right? Is that blanked off window still like that?
We're actually adding
Sorry.
a door in this area. I'll show you the
Okay,
elevations.
thank you. Sorry, I didn't know that already.
So that's this elevation. That's where, I'm sorry.
That's the front.
Yeah, I think you're.
Is it the back? Is it the, it's the other one, it's the
I think
back
it is
side.
this elevation here where we've
Yep.
got that misrepresented, where that blank window is in between these. So we're not proposing any
okay,
changes along
okay.
here other than
The door
adding,
number 3 is,
adding this door
yeah.
and adding.
And would you,
No,
sorry,
you
just,
wait.
would you, just question, would you consider a different paint job on it? Knowing that it is not historical and that it doesn't have to remain that color that it is?
I suppose we'd be open to it. I thought when we had initially submitted this application, there were some feedback from planning that it was on the inventory list. So that's, either I'm misremembering that or that's new news to me that.
Could be on
Well,
the
trying to
inventory
keep-
list, but that doesn't require that
Well-
you not change it.
Yeah, let me ask you another question. How much of this how much of the wall are you changing? Wall, door, windows? Can you just hover over the things that are changing? Just because their line weights are similar, so it's hard to.
So you can see, this is our existing demo plan, so you can see along the existing perimeter walls, we're adding 2 new windows here. Or actually, I think we're
Removing?
Yeah, remote.
We're removing those windows. We're creating a new opening here and here. And then we're having to get into the wall here a little bit to allow for,
Looks like that
This
upper
new door.
right, you're closing in, maybe?
Show them side by side so you
Yeah,
can see
it is, that's
both.
the bathroom.
it's hard to see.
There you go.
Or actually, the
So you're filling in that
pose
upper
kinda
right window.
shows-
Yeah, we're filling in a
Yeah,
window here.
yeah.
So, but basically, most of the outside skin you're not touching.
We're trying to maintain, yeah, nearly all of it, with the exception of where we need a new door or a new window for egress purposes. So we were trying to just limit the disruption to the existing exterior wherever possible, as much as possible.
Okay. All right, other questions? Questions? All right, let's roll into comments. Who wants to kick us off? Yeah, who wants to kick us off?
Well, my comment, I think we've got to, you have to resolve the fire sprinkler double check valve screening in a manner which is not shown now. I'm not sure what you're going to do, but you have the possibility of going on the adjacent site and doing it. But I envision that thing being a big thing, and in a very little planter that is not going to be able to screen it.
Would you
So you've
just say we prefer it to be moved? If
Well, I'm not going to tell them what to do. I think they have the ability to do it, but I was saying it's not acceptable where it's shown.
Yeah.
First,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you can put it inside the building, take a room, whatever.
Give a whole floor to it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, other comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Vice Chair House.
It sounds like it's going to return perhaps on consent for the final approval, but I think there should be a reflected ceiling plan of the drive-through and, more thorough electrical information, lighting information, so that can be reviewed. I'm uncomfortable not having a cornice on the cell tower screen, just because right now, to me, it kind of sticks out as different than everything else. And especially, your rendering on your title page, my eye just kind of goes to that as like, it looks more like an add-on or something. So I feel like a cornice would help it. But I also understand if that's a fiberglass structure, adding a cornice to it might be a challenge, but, it could be foam and.
Could be fiberglass.
Could be fiberglass,
Yeah.
could be foam.
And
with
you
a
could,
stucco coat
I
on
mean,
it.
you could take and, as opposed to getting rid of all the plastic, you can have some plaster columns and plaster column and, the plastic infill. And a plaster header and a cornice. I mean, you probably could keep the transparency for electronics there in some way, shape, or form, but still get the plaster and the cornice.
Chair,
All right.
and
Yes,
since we're
Commissioner
commenting
Asbury?
on
Yep.
that particular thing, I sort of feel like the more you add to it, then the more you're drawing attention to it. And it can't be lower, right? It has to be that height. It's
The
existing.
equipment's pretty high behind
Yeah,
that wall.
so you have to have it there. So it's,
We could expose
I don't-
expose the dishes and whatever, and call it art.
Yeah. Okay.
paint it red.
And just paint the dishes and say it's your artistic statement on, or put a little tiny solar panel on top of it and just call it a solar panel holding structure. We can't do anything. We have no purview instantly.
Right, so I would say I think I agree with the direction they've gone. I mean, there's just not much they can do about it. And so I don't think adding the cornice is really helping that much either.
Well, so
you
part
think-
of it was, I don't, as part of this conversation.
Yeah.
Can you go to the roof plan? And is there specific specs that it has to be a distance away from a solid thing before it works or doesn't work?
I don't think so.
The equipment is right up against the wall. We don't show it there, but we might have pictures from the roof exhibit. There's, the equipment is actually
It's mounted
attached
it's mounted
to the
inside face
wall.
of that wall, yeah.
See, forget about it.
So is there, and so I guess part of the rolling into questions versions of it, at least on the front side, is there a, can you step a wall in front of that wall or what? Or with perforations or whatever? Because I think part of the discussion is looking at trying to have that as infill, and then is there any amount of that can be
Yeah, we don't have a lot of space there, so adding a new wall outboard of that line, I think, could be challenging to, we haven't had that specific question, but given they seem reluctant to let us plaster the wall itself, I think adding a plastered wall without a significant
sure
gap
that wouldn't
between the
go over.
walls wouldn't defeats the purpose. Right.
Okay.
Honestly, I think in this situation, less is more, and we're trying to really not bring
I
attention to
probably
it.
agree with you.
And it's, the perspective actually makes it look higher than it is. When you drive by, you won't even really notice it.
Actually, that's a good point. This perspective looks like it's taken at like
Second floor
10,
almost.
12 feet in the air. Okay.
Frank Lloyd Wright.
And it's the color,
There you go.
what's the color of it is?
It's white.
To match the adjacent plaster.
Does it? Okay. Okay, so are we continuing with comments?
Yes.
Okay.
We're continuing with comments.
Can I do that?
Yeah.
So I vote to leave it and just let it go away. There's enough else going on in the building, and I don't think there's anything to be done about it, so leave it alone. And then I agree about the reflected ceiling plan. On that one light fixture, I'm having a little bit of a problem between the two wall sconces. I like the one that's bigger. The other one just seems like it doesn't relate, and it feels like it's not the same quality level. So I don't know if you could look and see if you could maybe find another one. The bigger one feels, well, that's the Handelman, right? Are they both Handelman?
Yes, they are.
Oh, okay. But it's, I don't know, I just feel like it's so different in feeling.
I think he was having a bad year that year.
No, it's a good light, it's just that it doesn't relate to the other one. So I feel like, or the pendant, which I like, sort of has a Moroccan feel to it a little bit. So I would urge you to find another fixture that matches more, that's more compatible with the one up on the upper right. I mean, it could be the same, form, it doesn't have to have the big scroll on top or anything, but just, it just feels completely different to me. So that's,
Isn't that okay?
no, not to me. it isn't.
Sometimes.
I just think it doesn't feel like, it feels like an
Well, I was going to
oddball.
piggyback on that. I think it's almost like a little bit like dipping its toe in arts and crafts.
Yeah, thank you.
In terms of the.
Which one? A?
The B.
B?
B,
The one
yeah,
in the
because of the
lower right.
horizontal,
Yeah.
maybe if it was a little bit more attenuated, but I agree, I think the geometry of them are different, one of them is very strongly Spanish colonial, both of those, actually C and A are very strongly Spanish colonial revival. That one's kind of like a little bit of a mix.
And the one on the upper
Yeah.
right
It'll be
very
really-
much relates to the pendant. So
Yeah,
that's why I'm
exactly, I
liking
know.
those two, but, so that's that comment. And then finally, if it is possible, since you're doing all this work, I think that little house could be really a lot more pretty if it were able to be painted. And maybe it would work because you are doing work out there. You may have enough,
Pardon my
cut and paste.
interruption. Through the chair to Commissioner Ensberg, I
Yeah.
did a little digging just to figure out where you got the feedback about that house being historic. It needs a historical assessment. If you do make any changes to the front of that little house, that will trigger the historic assessment, which is, I think, probably why you guys haven't made any changes to it, to avoid having to go hire a consultant and do all of that stuff. So if they do changes to it, it's going to trigger a whole thing. If not, then
we just have to live with
leave it.
that.
Oh, let's trigger everything.
No,
Pull the trigger.
we've gone this far and you've done all that. I don't think that would be fair.
Is
to do,
changing
but-
the color a change?
That is a good question for our historian. Nicole's, I think her feedback is usually that the color, because it's not a permanent change, it usually doesn't have a negative impact to the resource. That's not always something that would maybe trigger a whole bunch of stuff for a CEQA thing.
Especially if it wasn't as part of the project, because they could paint it without,
Right.
if it wasn't this whole construction project, you could just go and paint it. Yeah,
And it could have a positive impact.
yeah, so that might be a nice thing to
Yeah.
mention.
So anyway, just
Okay.
keep in mind, I think it could be really a nice, addition to the entire project, because it would just be freshened up and really pretty. So, take
Okay.
it.
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair House.
As far as the lighting, I don't have a problem with different styles or different designs of lanterns, but I think what's working against it right now is that the fixture B, I guess it is, has not opaque, but translucent glass, and the others have clear glass. And then if they're going to be dark sky, I think these pictures need to represent what's going in there. And so you can use any of his different glasses on any of these fixtures. So figure out what you want to use and show that.
Our goal is to use seated glass.
Okay. Yeah.
Our goal is to see the glass throughout.
Mm-hmm.
And apologize for the for the photographs just came directly from
Yeah,
the
I
catalog.
know.
So, and then we do have nice sky compliant cut sheets, how they actually modify these, which we will add.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, other comments?
Chair Grumbine?
Yes.
I
Commissioner
have a
Nyfer.
couple of comments. One, the landscape plans aren't complete. And secondly, that backflow preventer I could envision it having 6-inch risers and just being an epically large piece of equipment. And it just can't go there.
No. And we've been burned before on
We'll
that
get
recently.
a lot of heat from it if that goes in.
No pun intended, I'm sure.
No, no, certainly no.
Yeah, that needs to be worked on, drawn
Can
to
you,
scale.
anything else in particular you want to mention on the landscape plans being complete?
Well,
Or
they
to
that's
be
kind of
complete?
it even says not for construction on the plans, but there's a lot of, they're just giving a plant list, and we want to see where they go in quantities.
So quantities and, quantities and sizes. Quantities, locations,
I
sizes.
wish we'd given this much time to the State Street Advisory Committee.
Hey, none of that.
Uh-oh, I apologize. I apologize.
All right.
Going sideways here.
Okay. All right, so any other comments that we want to add to it? Otherwise, I'll summarize, and it's for project design or final approval. It's obvious there's going to be these things, and I guess the question is if people are comfortable with these comments to be going back to full board, or do they want it going to consent if they're comfortable enough with these? So let me summarize first, and then we can kind of see where it goes. So first, thank you for coming with a great project. It's going to be a huge improvement on the current, and we're very, very thankful to see this come before us. And all the hard work is taken. So the comments include that the cornice, or the design for the enclosure for the Verizon, what's the official?
tower.
Cell tower enclosure.
antennas.
Yeah, is appropriate as presented, with the hope that they can plaster it, and if not, paint it to match the existing, and without the cornice is acceptable, in the hopes that it will be less obvious. There is a need for a reflected ceiling plan for the first floor, including showing the lighting, full lighting plan.
The drive-through.
And with the drive-through, and the walkway as well, and the lighting. And then for the lighting fixtures to be shown, the appropriate ones to be dark sky compliant, and the appropriate specs shown, including glass and, and the full fixture. The fixture B should at least some or most, is this most of the commission agree that fixture B should be swapped out with something more Spanish Glen Revival?
I think if the glass were
No, I
different.
think
Yeah, I
the
don't-
glass were different.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that little
Well-
chimney makes it a little bit more craftsman, but, otherwise if it were tucked up to the scroll.
The shapes are about the same.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so some commissioners feel that, that it should be it. Yeah, how do you guys feel? Some, okay, everyone's good with some. They don't have to pick sides, now they already know there's a difference.
So can I get a clear, definite direction on that? Do you want me to, do I have to change it, or do I not have to change it?
So it
Because
seemed,
nobody mentioned any of that the last time.
yeah, but this is for final, so this is where a lot of the specs get evaluated at a much stronger level. So, so I think that we'll see where this goes. If it goes to consent, then you only have to deal with the consent commissioners. And it's a split.
Dealing with me.
And it's a split vote, so at least you're getting the sense of that. And if you want to have an option, so you come back with an option, another one, and then,
Okay,
and then
great.
if you
Thank
get
you.
made to do that, then that might be a way.
You know, I was going to make the argument, this is like the jewelry. This is like the real detail that you see. I feel strongly about it. I had thought about, well, if you just change, before I made my comments, I thought, well, you could just change the glass out. But it's the form. It is craftsman. It isn't the same. So I think the building will be greatly benefited and more beautiful with another fixture. So I feel strongly about it.
Yeah, and me too. I think it could, I think it's somewhere in between, and it's a confused fixture.
So some commissioners feel strongly.
It's conflicted.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's still a sum, and it's definitely somewhere in the middle. And so they can take that, and either if they want to take a chance and they feel strongly but that the fixture is the right one and they found a home for it, then.
I feel craftsman.
Chair, that would be the right fixture for the little house.
Well, we're not changing that one. So.
No, but I'm just saying that would be, you could use
Okay.
it over there.
Yes. Okay, so,
Paint it.
I think it captures it, saying that some fixtures, some commissioners. Okay, so then, one thing we're for sure in agreement on is the backflow preventer double check valve needs to be moved from the front, and we see there's other possibilities. It's not acceptable as proposed, and we really do not want to see it in the front if at all possible. And it needs to be screened appropriately wherever it goes, for wherever the location is. There as well, with the landscape plans aren't complete, there needs to be, including needing to have quantities, locations, and sizes of plants called out, as well as whatever they're screening if they are used as screening devices. And then, there's a recommendation, but not a requirement, to consider painting what building is it? Building C? Yeah.
Can I just make one clarification? Our TD1 sheet does show quantities of our plants on the upper left-hand corner, so.
But there's no graphics in there, it's just an area. It's like a shaded area for the plant list.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. We do have
That's
quantities.
just for trees.
Okay.
But that's the list of quantities of trees they're saying,
Yeah.
but not, okay. Yeah, okay. And then we did lighting cornice. Okay, and I think that completes all the no ones I have. Is there anyone want to add any other comments?
I think you got it all.
Okay, so then the next question would be to continue to the full board or continue to consent with those comments?
I move it to consent.
All right, we have a motion for move it to consent. We have a second by Commissioner Butler, first by Commissioner Uli. Under discussion, any discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair
Well,
Grumbine.
actually, I have one more thing. If they say we can't move the backflow preventer, I'm not at consent, I'm not approving that. If they say we can't do it, it's too expensive, not happening. So I don't know if you want to.
I would agree. I would agree. It's not going to go where it's shown.
Okay, yeah, and the comment is, it's not acceptable in its current location, and if it is at all possible, we want to see it moved, so.
No, it's not at all possible.
Well, it leaves it for, if there's an absolutely extraordinarily winning argument for why it cannot move, then.
Then you got to change the architecture.
That can present.
You got to change the architecture
That could be
then.
presented at consent, and it also would have to be screened as well, even if there was this incredibly compelling reason.
And if it
So-
doesn't fly at consent, they bounce it here, and
Yep.
it's more time. So-
And if it does fly at consent and someone doesn't like that, they can still bring it up to HLC. So,
Louise Boucher would be rolling in her grave if we approved it without the proper screening.
all right, so we don't want her rolling in their grave.
No.
Well, so just for clarification for me, please.
Yeah.
So if it goes to consent, I mean, there's a number of questions. I mean, I'd like to
Yeah.
see the reflected ceiling plan. We had this whole discussion about the lighting, so.
If you want to see it, then you should.
And
the
actually,
motion should be
along
there.
those lines, it is okay for commissioners as long as we don't have quorum, or no, it's still.
So the full commission will receive a copy of the consent agenda with links to the plans. You're all expected to review those plans. So that way, when you find out the motions from the consent reviewers, you can accurately vote on whether or not you agree with that motion.
But is it possible for HLC members who want to join consent for that day, to join consent for that review?
That's a more complicated question that I would probably need to talk with Ellen
Okay.
about. because
So
again,
we
we
can-
get quorum issues. If perhaps one commissioner wanted to step in for Vice Chair House because they were particularly interested and he was amenable to that, or if Vice Chair House didn't feel comfortable and wanted another commissioner to step in for his place, we could do that kind of substitution, but adding members in, I don't think is something that is in
Okay,
our
so
policy.
let's say, can we get clarity on that? Come back to us with clarity for sure on what the official policy is for adding a member to consent or not. But in the meantime, our rules are whatever they are. We'll find out the clarity on that. And at the end of the day, we can always call, if we're not satisfied with what happened at consent, and we weren't there, but we're not happy with we can always call it up to the full commission.
And when,
But then that's
With
a
a-
delay, it might just
It
be.
is a
streamlined
delay.
Well,
if
they,
we-
they have heard the discussion.
Yeah.
So they're in the room here, and they've heard everything
Yep,
we've talked
exactly.
about. So when they go do their stuff, then they'll kind of know.
And they
Because,
can also request an agenda, it be agendized for full commission, can't
yeah, they could make that call
I
if they
mean,
think that
Even
it,
if the motion was for
it's
to go to
iffy.
consent.
yes,
Okay.
if they would prefer to go to
Perfect,
full
so it
commission.
becomes in the applicant's court to decide whether they want to chance it or not.
As it
And-
should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roll the
Question?
dice, roll the dice and see what you get.
Anything else,
Just one more
Commissioner?
thing, like, let's say Cass wants to call me and say, hey, I don't like the light fixture. Is that against the rules of Brown Act and stuff for her to, you can.
All right, cut the
As
mic.
long as she doesn't call everybody else.
Just kidding. So basically, all that is very much frowned upon for the reason that then someone else might call Cass that you don't know about, and then there's been discussions, and someone else might call that. So the general rule is don't call and talk to people about particular programs. Yeah, don't even look
Especially
at-
us.
Or your dog. Don't talk to your dog.
Tava would be proud of you.
So that's the official rule to make sure that we don't violate Brown Act. Brown Act is not violated until a quorum has had a discussion outside of.
By any means.
By any means, and including an in-betweens means that he wasn't even on the commission. So that's why Tava would be, that's
You
what
get a
Tava
gold
would say.
star.
Yeah, right, Tava?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so any other discussion? This is a good lively discussion.
Nothing to do with the project.
We're learning things. We're learning things. All right.
Call the motion.
All right,
just to
call-
end on a positive note, that we really appreciate, you already said that.
Yeah.
And thank you so
We'll
much.
end it on
and-
that too. That's the
yeah,
bracket. We
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good project.
Yeah, it
All
really
right.
is. It's come a long way.
All
and
right,
it's
roll
great.
call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Abstain?
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. So.
Good luck with that.
Good luck. Yes. All right. And so with that, I will adjourn the meeting. All right.
Whack.